On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're exploring 3 remarkable London homes, each a testament to vision, creativity, and thoughtful restoration. Our first stop is a once-forgotten Georgian gem, now transformed into a whimsical and expressive sanctuary, brimming with meaningful art, vintage finds, and playful design. Next, we visit a vibrant and joy-filled home where every room bursts with bold color and charming detail. And finally, we step inside a beautifully restored Victorian home that once derelict is now a harmonious blend of historic character and modern elegance. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Tess. Welcome to my Georgian house in East London. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Tess Atkinson. I'm a publicist and welcome to my home in East London. So this is my Georgian home in East London. It's the end of terrace in Bethnal Green. And previous to us living here, it had been derelict for many years. When we purchased it, it was completely uninhabitable, bars across all the windows and doors. And yeah, it was in a bit of a sorry state of affairs. We're in a row of 3, and a couple of the other houses had been renovated. So there was like a light at the end of the tunnel that we could see. So we bought it during the height of lockdown, where you couldn't even have builders at one stage. And we renovated it room by room whilst living here. Luckily, this all happened before my daughter arrived, so it was just the 2 of us. And yeah, pretty much everything in this house we have changed. Some of the features we've tried to reinstate. A lot of the original features had been taken out, but it's such a sweet little terraced house. We knew that there was potential here, and yeah, we just really wanted to pursue it. Our house is coming up to its 200th birthday, so it was built in the 1830s, and previously it looked a bit worse for wear in that it was dirty on the outside, none of the bricks had been looked after. So from the front it has the London stock brick, which is like this nice yellowy colour, and at the back, because these are old workers' houses, you can see that they used all different types of bricks to like make the back work. So there's 3 different colours of bricks, which you might see when we look at the back later on. It was really worse for wear in that all the windows were different. So the original sash windows had been slowly replaced over times with different horns, which are like the top edges of the windows. And so we restored and reinstated all the original horns and made it double glazing to make it more energy efficient for now. But yeah, it was pretty ugly duckling, but now it's a beautiful swan for sure. Welcome to my kitchen. So this was originally 3 rooms and we have made it one big space. So we have slightly paid an ode to the Georgian heritage of the property by having a little scullery area, and then we've brought the kitchen out into the dining space to make it, much more sociable and pleasing. So we have like 2 kitchens in one, in that we have these Duval units. These are part of their haberdasher range, so really nice wooden tones with the copper worktop. And then we also have units from Plain English Kitchens, which is their standard shaker cupboards, for the scullery area. This marble is like really special. So this marble is puzzled together from a couple of pieces, which I found on eBay from a stately home that was throwing out a bunch of stuff. And it was incredibly cheap and nobody wanted to do this job for me. But I eventually found a great marble fitter who saw the vision, and he polished it all up for me and created this amazing worktop and shelf. And it's this amazing brown colour, so when you spill stuff on it, you don't really notice that much. But it's beautiful, definitely the highlight of this part of the kitchen by far. So all these units are painted in Farrow and Ball breakfast room green. And then the green kind of brought out lots of different other colours with it. So we've kept the green on the shelving on this side, but you can see that we've styled things with like drip cups that I found on Instagram. Basically everything vintage I source on Instagram. They're amazing vintage sellers on there. The plates I also found on Instagram. Again, you just can't beat it. And then this is Nikki Haslam's balcony stripe, which I was desperate to use somewhere in the house, and it covers up our washing machine. I love that fabric so much. I would love to have a whole room of that fabric one day. So one of the highlights for me is this sink, which is by Shaw's. I love a fluted sink, and it's such a favourite design detail for me. And I am also somebody who uses a washing up bowl, which I know not many people do, controversial nowadays, but I even have a beautiful washing up bowl. It's beautiful drip. I found it in this amazing store in the north of England called Reistery, and I just love it so much. Vases are kind of like an array of recent purchases and old. So this one is from Spitalfields Townhouse, which is another Georgian townhouse, but in the heart of East London. And they do all these amazing vases, and they do amazing decorations at Christmas. It's a proper East London like stalwart brand, and we just love that vase so much. And then you can see over on this wall, this is kind of like my daughter's takeover. We're still at the age where it hurts throwing away a piece of her art, so it just slowly mounts up, and I love it. So yeah, that's where we keep the ever-changing wall. And you can see she's also had influence on our fridge as well, which we cover in like magnets from our travels. You might notice that this fridge is quite significant in size. Potentially it may never leave this house because the window it came in through has now changed shape. So that's going to be here for the long term. But yeah, you need a big fridge when you've got a family. It's difficult to describe my design style. I would say that we have tried to be traditional on the fixed things. So we have like a nice neutral base, and the colour is kind of brought in through all the insane furnishings, and my partner would call them trinkets, that I have littered the house with. There is like a mix of traditional and more modern pieces. I like to have like one slightly mad thing in each room, and I think each room has quite a few mad things in by now. And then also we have a young daughter who has influenced heavily. There's toys everywhere. Some of them are aesthetically pleasing, others are not. But there's a lot more colour now that she's part of the picture, and she uses every room thoroughly, but it also means we've had to think about the rooms in a different way. Like for example, her room has a very comfortable floor because we end up spending a lot of time on the floor playing. So things like that have really influenced the style as well. So one of my favorite mad things is in our home is we have these lots of different vases, and a few years ago on Instagram, like the item everyone had was this Anissa Kamish bum vase, which is now very much out of fashion, but I am obsessed with ours. It's bright orange and it's of a bum. And then we also have these porcelain Staffordshire dogs, which my partner absolutely hates, but they're really fun, and I put like party hats on them for seasonal decorations as well. But every room has something slightly crazy in, and like there's different pieces of art around the house, which you'll see as I show you around, and all of them there's just slightly crazy things. Lots of bamboo furniture as well, which isn't to everyone's taste, but yeah, you'll see as the colour kind of comes out in different rooms. And then this section, we really liked copper, and without kind of by accident, it just became like the theme of the kitchen. The floor, I was like really inspired by like holiday homes and like a Mediterranean feel. And so these terracotta tiles, everything started from them. So once we got them in and this like sandy coloured grout, it kind of built up this like coppery tone that I wanted to keep going. So the copper worktop is very much not for perfectionists. It came bright orange, bright copper orange, and within like hours had started patinaing and scratching, and you can see that I've put something here the other day and that's melted across, and there's stains and all sorts of things. So it's not for a perfectionist, but it's so beautiful how it changes over time. I love it so much, and have built this collection of jelly molds and French pans as well. My favourite jelly mould is the unicorn one, which I got from Ratch Vintage on Instagram. She's an amazing seller, and actually my unofficial unicorn dealer. I have some little unicorn miniatures upstairs from her as well. But I love the jelly moulds. I need to add more, I think, if anything, above the top. So maybe that's coming soon. And I talked before about like having a mad thing in every room, and like this is definitely the maddest thing in here, which is like this crown fruit bowl. Again, I found on Instagram. Just a wonder of Instagram. So when it comes to art, I really do believe that you can put anything on a wall, and especially when you've got children and they have lots of crazy art habits early on. So this is like one of my favourite pieces in the house. Last Christmas, we took my mother-in-law to Claridge's for lunch. And this is the children's menu, which my daughter completely attacked throughout the meal. But I framed it afterwards because it was such a special event, but also like really like a reminder of a chaotic but nice meal. Obviously, I wanted her to be sleeping peacefully throughout the whole thing, but that didn't happen. And no, this isn't the colours I would have chosen if I was curating the drawing of this. But it's just a reminder that you just kind of have to let things go when you've got kids. So that's one of my favourite pieces in the house. And another one of my favourite pieces, which my partner thinks I'm completely insane about, is this pepper mill, which is by Saskau Studio. It was so expensive for a pepper mill, but when I got a new job, this is how I celebrated. I bought myself a pepper mill, and I think more people should celebrate that way, to be honest. So yeah, I sourced a lot of vintage on Vinteria. This is a purchase that I got through them. This is a Spanish brutalist stool, which is just the perfect bum shape. And since I was a kid, we always had a stool in our kitchen. So I always wanted to have one in mine when I eventually moved out. So I've always had a stool in the kitchen. And it's just like a nice place to perch whilst someone else is cooking or anything like that. So that will be in every kitchen that we ever have, I think. And then this wonderful shell, which should have fruit in it, but I need to do a shop, is Matilda Goad. I'm obsessed with Matilda Goad and everything she does, and we've got her handles in other parts of the house. But the shell is the iconic piece that, yeah, we've had for a long time. And this piece is a print from John Constable, who's an old English painter. And yeah, it's one of my favourite pieces of his. It's called The Trees. And I bought it at like his exhibition when I was a teenager, and I've like had it in like lots of different flats when I was like moving across London, and it's just a really special piece to have in my kitchen now. And then this tiny little version of the kitchen is our miniature version of our pantry area for our daughter. When she was a newborn on my maternity leave, I painted this basically to look exactly like ours, which is kind of hysterical, but also a maniac thing to do. But yeah, we love it, and she literally plays with it every single day when we're cooking, so it was definitely worth the craziness of doing it. So the newest addition in this kitchen is this banquette seating, which is by the house upstairs. Jodie is my favourite Instagrammer. We are long-term Instagram friends, and yeah, I was so excited when she launched her furniture range, and this is from her. So it's a red striped denim, which means that I can wash it, but it's just beautiful, and it like ties this whole room together perfectly. And so the red stripe is complemented by this blue trim, and red and blue is my absolute favourite colour combination, and it is in every single room of the house, kind of without realising it. So we've got the red and blue rug, the blue stairs with the red features, and it will just, as we go around, you'll see that it just pops up kind of everywhere accidentally. I didn't mean for it to run through the house, it just does. I used to be really interested in film, and I studied film, and so this poster is the poster for Bringing Up Baby, which is one of my favourite films with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. I've had that forever, and it's always been the centrepiece of a room in every single flat I've lived in. And then these pieces this is actually my uncle in his Mini. He used to be a racing driver. So this is a nice little special photograph that I had framed recently. And then over here we have a painting from a really special place called Tarragona in Spain, which is where me and my partner visited, and he bought me that for a birthday one year. So yeah, lots of little special pieces. And this is actually a sketch of the Chiltern Firehouse, which we go to every year the day before my birthday. It's a really great spot for celebrity spotting. If you're ever in London and want to see a celebrity, you have to go to the firehouse. They're always there. So yeah, it's fun, and the food is good as well, which helps. And the last time I was there, we were sat next to Demi Moore. So pretty good one. I think that's our best one yet, actually. We were blessed with a very mature wisteria in our garden when we got this house, which we didn't really even realise because we moved in during winter. So it didn't mature for a good 6 months until after we'd moved in. But it slightly became the bane of my existence because you have to constantly clear all these leaves and stuff. But I did want to have a special ode to it in the weeks that it's not flowering. So I kind of painted with Annie Sloan chalk paint this like ode to it on our fuse box. you know, you have to make these things slightly more romantic. And so that's, you know, housing, you know, toilet rolls and stuff, and also our fuse box in something beautiful. And the stairs are painted in Cook's Blue from Farrow and Ball. And yeah, we'll go up to the living room next. Welcome to my living room. So when we first moved in, we made this room the like safe space of the house, and it was originally yellow, bright yellow. And we brought this sofa with us from our previous place, and then this sofa is actually a sofa bed so that we can have people to stay. But this then eventually like matured as our taste matured throughout the renovation, so that we then painted it this grand James White colour from Farrow and Ball, which is a lot more grown up than the yellow that it was before. And we've got some beautiful pieces of art in here. This piece is by Ren Condry, and we found it in Cornwall on a holiday there once. And my partner actually surprised me with it for my birthday. He actually hid it under our bed for months, and I had no idea that it was there. And then surprised me on my birthday. So kudos to him for that one, because that was a good one. And this is a new piece that I got recently by Ollie Marr, and it's of Victoria Park, which is our local park in East London. And yeah, it's a really special piece for me because I spent my whole maternity leave trudging around Victoria Park, and during lockdowns, it was a whole route of Victoria Park, because from here to Victoria Park and one lap and back is exactly 10,000 steps. So that would be our daily routine, would be that we would trudge around. So that's a really special piece for us. And then here and over on the other side, we have two pieces by an amazing artist called Kate Wickham. These are like really special pieces. Her use of colour is amazing, and I love all the shapes that she uses, like more of an abstract style, which I love. And then this one is by Jane McCall, and she does a lot of art like from the Charleston House, which is part of the Bloomsbury set. So it's this beautiful style. You'll see like the painted furniture and things on Instagram, and yeah, all these people, and I just love all the colours of the pieces in this room. And the other standout piece for me is this mirror, which is by Folie Chambre, and it's the black and white stripe, and it is the absolute showstopper of the house. Everyone comments on it when they come in. And yeah, I just love it so much. It's really playful, but also like really grounds the room. So yeah, I love that piece so much. I do have a habit of buying the incorrectly sized pieces of furniture. You'll see some of that later on. But this was a purposeful miniature sized purchase, and she literally sits there and watches TV. She loves having her own size chair. So that's a really special piece from Find FYND on Instagram. So yeah, I love that piece so much. And then I'm a lamp addict, and the lamps in here have changed many times. But one thing I can never get over is the wavy lampshade. So these are from Munro & Kerr, and they're a Considered Space collaboration, and we have 3 of them in this space, and inevitably I will get more of them because I always come back to that shape. I just think it's so classic and always fits on whatever base you've got. So yeah, I love that shape so much. Nobody really needs a holder for matches that's ceramic with a strike on the bottom, but I have loads of these because they are beautiful. So this is from Quince's store, which is one of my favourite online shops. She curates the most beautiful selection of pieces. So yeah, she has these. I know at the minute they're also doing like a ceramic candle snuffer, so that's next on my shopping list. And then candles, obviously everywhere. This is a Loewe one, which I love. And over on this side I have more candles, but also a little catch-all tray, which is the Lacquer Company's collection with Rita Koenig. So it's actually Rita Koenig who has that rule of, she calls it one ugly thing in every room, which I've changed to one mad thing in every room. So yeah, I'm a big Rita fan. So yeah, I love having that in the house. And underneath you can see my pile of books that I need to read. This is my to-read pile. So yeah, I really need to start digging into them. So this is a vintage Dalvera sideboard, which was sourced for me by Diorling, who's also on Instagram. She's an interior designer. So even though we have a Georgian style house, I really love like mid-century furniture. So trying to fit mid-century style in with like more traditional features is something fun I like to do. The flooring that we did in here is much more French Parisian apartment than Georgian house in London, but we loved it so much that we kept it uncovered for over a year. So we didn't have any rugs in here. And then when it got to winter, we realised we really need some rugs, especially when you're sitting on the floor playing with kids the whole time. So we found this rug from Nordic Knots. It's not a perfect rectangle. It's got these lovely little features in. And I love this piece so much. And the colour is just another yellowy colour that really ties this room together beautifully. And when you live this centrally, you need some privacy. So we added cafe curtains in the front windows of our house. These are from East London Cloth. They do really special cafe curtains in this really soft linen, and we used these hospital brackets in between our triple sash to make it really just like, it's like jewellery for the room. I love it so much. And the curtains are from Ian Mankin. They're this really nice picnic gingham fabric, and I'm lucky enough that my mother-in-law is an ex-seamstress, so she actually made them ones for us. So yes, very lucky there. I love leopard print in my wardrobe. I wear a lot of leopard print, and it does feature throughout the house quite heavily as well. So leopard print is very much a neutral for me. So I like to have it as a base. And so these cushions obviously ground this whole room. And this is one of my favourite fabrics. This is Nymphaeus from GPJ and Baker. And they do it in this really nice white as well, but I love the dark fabric a lot. So all the colours of the room are kind of tied in to that fabric on the sofa. We've got various light switches throughout. We mainly went for dimmer lighting, but not always the most practical, as it's very difficult to wire up. So these satin boards are used throughout, and you will end up buying these at great expense and they won't always fit on. And my top tip is blue tack behind them. That will keep them in place. So yeah, I love these toggles, really nice. We didn't have a hallway in this house to maximise on space, so the front door just opens straight into the living room. So it was important that the colour matched inside as well as outside. And when we bought the house, it had a pistachio green door. So just to keep on, you know, the heritage of the house, I kept the pistachio green, but I slightly updated it. So this is pea green from Little Green Paint Company. And yeah, it was the original namesake of my Instagram account, which used to be called Pistachio Terrace, because we call the house Pistachio Terrace, named after the door colour. So yeah, I love that colour so much. And yeah, it was definitely the inspiration for the rest of the green in the house as well. So the renovation of this house took about 3 years. And my friends will still tell me, like, when do you think you finished it? And I will say, like, last week. But it was a long process to make every room nice. We started with the bathroom, mainly because I was in a state of, I didn't feel clean when I left my shower. So we changed the bathroom within pretty much the first 2 weeks. And then we made this room livable, so we made it nice. And then we circled back to this room right at the end when we've gone through all the other stages. The biggest change we made is that we made the downstairs one big space. So it was originally a galley kitchen with a separate dining area and a little corridor and built-in storage. And we opened all that space up to make it one big kitchen diner. That was like the biggest change that we made. So it involved knocking walls down and lots of structural beams going in and things like that. But otherwise the rest of the house was just things like flooring changes, leveling. Old English houses have like wonky floors, wonky ceilings. Some of the wonky ceilings we left in, but the wonky floors we did level out. But yeah, pretty much everything got changed eventually. We didn't realise we wanted to take on a renovation of this scale, but when we saw the house, we just kind of knew it was the one. Like, I grew up in London and always wanted a house with a stoop. Like, that was of huge importance to me. And this house has a great stoop. And I just loved that we could like have this outdoor space as well as indoor space. And because it had had so many sales had fallen through, the owners were like desperate to get rid of it by the time we came up. It just felt like fortuitous timing. So we decided to jump in with both feet, and we kind of didn't expect it to be so extensive. These old homes do have a way of opening themselves up to you once you're in them. And we had a lot of fun doing it. Because, like I said, it was during lockdown for one of the phases, we ended up doing some things we would never try ever, out of necessity. So we laid the kitchen floor ourselves, and we, chose all the paint colours. We did a lot of the design ourselves, which we probably didn't realise we were going to do. And we've been green-fingered-ish outside in the garden and tried a bit of landscaping and stuff. So it really has made us be a lot more creative, and neither me or my partner have particularly creative jobs. So it's been a nice little outlet on the side. And now we'll move into the study. welcome to my study. This is very much the home of all my books and magazines from my teenagedom all the way through to today. I have loads of nylons, Lula, I don't know if anyone remembers Lula, I have all of them. Love magazine, Vogue's, Elle's, everything. And no pressure on my daughter or future children, but they need to appreciate them, otherwise I have no justification for why I've kept them this long. But it is nice to kind of refer back to them every, very, very rarely, just to see how fashion comes around again so quickly. It's hysterical. And most of them have Alexa Chung on the cover, who is still my style icon to this day. So yeah, nice to have a place for all my magazines. So one of my favourite magazines was Lula. I think I have every issue of this. But yeah, this is a very special magazine, which Leith Clark ran. And yeah, you still everything in here is in fashion now and features Zooey Deschanel and all of these good people. Yeah, I love having all of these to hand. So I keep all of my books on the top. These are very much the ones that I've read, so I'm very militant on if they're not read, they go over there, and once they're read, they move into their permanent home. So all of the books at the top have been thoroughly read and enjoyed. And then the rest of the stuff is all of the silly ceramics that I collect. You will notice that they have moved up, like I said before, because my daughter can now get in at this level. So her toys have started becoming part of the styling. But all the beautiful stuff on the top is still very much relevant. So this is one of my favourite things. It's a paper geranium. So geranium's my favourite flower. And this is by Plants for Shade. And she makes paper flowers, which are so beautiful. And obviously, if you're not as particularly green-fingered like me, then it will never die and it's always going to be beautiful. So that's pretty special. And I have more paper flowers as well. And these are a recent addition. These are these brutalist candlestick holders, which I love so much. Same with my horse, which is from Neptune. I kind of mix vintage with new every now and then. So yeah, that's actually new, but it still fits in really nicely with all the old stuff. And these are the Staffordshire dogs that I mentioned earlier, which these are my partner's most hated things in the house. And I love them to death. And yeah, I saw Townley Terrace, who's this other great Instagram account. She puts birthday hats on them and stuff at various holidays throughout the year. So we have started doing that too. Just in spite of my partner, to make them more part of the household, which I love. This is the aforementioned bum vase as well from Melissa Kamish. This is pretty special, this. Yeah, my partner gave me this many, many, many years ago, so we love this one. This is a vintage watering can. Obviously, everyone needs a vintage watering can. And this one is a snake skin. It's made of brass. And if anyone actually used it for water, I would be absolutely furious at them. But yeah, this is a thing of beauty. It was an eBay find many, many moons ago. And yeah, now my daughter fills it with shells every now and then, which is what you can hear rattling around. And every now and then I'll find blocks and stuff that she's put in it as well. But yeah, that's a nice piece, completely unnecessary, but important for us. And then I've also got photo albums as well. I try and do a photo album each year of my daughter's life to actually print out so that we can look through them and stuff. So yeah, they're really special there. And then also this guy, we go to Ireland every year, and there's a place in Dublin that makes these little Irish guys for GAA. So this is Gaelic football, and a little Irish football player from Kerry, which is where we go every year. So he's a special piece. So the design of this bookshelf kind of started with the seat. I knew originally this room had a really weird cupboard here and then some broken shelves on this side. And I knew I wanted to do something that built in all of it, because also this is our waste pipe and you need to cover that stuff up. So I wanted it to be clever in how it covered things up. So we knew that had to be in there. So I wanted to have a shelf at the top. And then I wanted to have a place for my magazines. So that was specifically designed for the magazines. And then this kind of fell into place because we originally had, when my partner worked at home, our desks here. So we faced each other. And then over the years that's changed. But this was always a good spot because if somebody came round or anything, they would sit there whilst we were at our desks. So it was kind of a play of that way. So we've used this fabric backing, which is more comfortable than you would think. And then, yeah, like a shallow shelf. And this is a pillow by Katie Tackler in the lasso fabric, and I just love that so much. That's one of my favourite fabrics for sure, so I wanted to bring it in somewhere. And it makes this space quite girly, which is quite nice now that it's just my study. And then this flat weave rug is a new addition from Studio Rond, who I've also found on Instagram. But they do these amazing Swedish flat weave rugs, and this just, I bought it thinking I didn't have a space for it, and then put it in here, and it's just perfect in here. I love it so much. And I'm also a basket addict, and like rattan weaving kind of like filters into the furniture as well. So I've got an amazing, that's from Firm Living, that plant holder, which is holding that plant who I've had for about 6 or 7 years and is a total Day of the Triffids beast now. But really happy that she's got a lovely little base, and same with the lamp, which is basically a basket in lamp form. So yeah, nice pieces then. So this light is vintage off of Etsy. It's actually a rise and fall lamp. So when my desk was originally in here, I could pull the lamp really low to have over my desk as I was working late. But now it's just like funny, and my daughter will like do a little performance under here, as it were. But yeah, a classic rise and fall from like the mid-70s. So yeah, I love that piece. And yeah, just really fun. And I love the gold of it as well. We've also got a pink ceiling, which kind of like gives a pink vibe throughout the whole space. So you do kind of read pink even though it's off the ceiling, which I think is a really nice feature. And then this is the main original feature of the house. So this is the wooden panelled wall that runs all the way through our house. And on this side, it's got really nice detailed mouldings, whereas on the other side, it's just plain. And that's because they put detail on the side that guests would have seen. So this is really special. We try not to hang anything on it or anything like that, just to keep it as nice as possible. But it was caked in paint when we arrived. So that was quite a restoration journey. But yeah, really special to have that as part of the house. And we've got another piece over there by Ren Condry, who's the same artist as the big piece in the living room. Yeah, I love her stuff, so really nice to have another one of hers. She actually nipped round to deliver that one when she came, and it was so funny, like opening the door and being like, hi, and her like piece of art was like in the background. I felt like a super fan, or like, it was, yeah, very awkward. And then these are chick blinds, which I've got here and also in the kitchen. I order them from Opium on the King's Road, but a few places do them. And they're just like a really nice added texture in a room to add a bit more privacy. And obviously they go up and down. And yeah, I just love the shape of them and the natural texture that they add to the space. So my favourite thing about my house is our bedroom. It is a blue haven and it's so comfortable, and even though you can't really do anything else other than sleep because the bed is like 90% of the room, it's such a special space, and I love the blue colour. Like, blue is my favourite colour, and it kind of seeped into every single room. But yeah, I love that room. It's got really nice joinery in with a special wardrobe, and yeah, it's a great space. So you can see the cook's blue runs all the way up the staircase in the house. And you can see on this side, the panelled wall also continues up to the top of the house. This is the more basic framing I was talking about, where it doesn't have the mouldings on the side where the guests wouldn't see. So this is the rest of the house is much more basic on the original panelled wall. This is a really good way of filling a huge wall slightly more cheaply than buying a massive piece of art. It's a Suzani, which I hung on a curtain rail. This I found literally just through scrolling endlessly on Etsy. And yeah, it's the blue and red theme of the house. And I just sewed it really crudely over a curtain rail to hang it. And then we've also got a collection of pictures from Fei Weiwei, which are from her magazine. So they're just cut out pieces of paper, which they just form a really nice collection there. This is a vintage vase from Lot Archives, which is a newly launched vintage archives shop on Instagram. She's also an interior designer as well, and I love that piece so much. So that's pretty special. And then this is James White as well. the space is painted the same colour as the living room. So we don't have any doors that connect downstairs to upstairs, so we just kept the same colour flowing throughout. And we've also painted the walls in eggshell paint, which is my top tip for durability because it's basically wipe clean. And it also gives this really nice sheen. So we've only got a small window in the hallway and the light still bounces around because it's this eggshell paint. So that's my top tip, is use eggshell on your walls if you can. So welcome to the main bedroom of the house. This room, like I said before, is like 90% bed because I believe in a super king size bed in every single room, if possible. So this is our bed, which is from Loaf, and the blue theme is strong in here. I wallpapered this room myself with this from Gallery Home, which is this light blue stripe, which I was worried might be a bit trippy on the eyes, but it's actually like really delicate and nice. And then from there, everything kind of fell into place, and this blue is French Blue by Edward Bulmer, and I think it's the best blue, the defining blue, as it were, and I want it in every house that we ever live in. So this wardrobe I designed because, so coming into the room, I didn't want to have like just a hard edge of wardrobe when you walked in, so I wanted to have a curved door, which was trickier to get made than you would think. So yeah, this bit houses shoes, and then the rest is clothes. And yeah, it's just such a special built-in wardrobe. It feels really unique, and yeah, I'm really pleased with that result. And then we use Matilda Gode's handles and hardware, which kind of make it feel a bit Elvis Presley, which I think should maybe be more people's design inspiration in their home. And then this piece is a strawberry piece from a gallery on Columbia Road. When you're pregnant, you have like this app that tells you what fruit size your baby is constantly. And we like thought of our daughter's name when she was the size of a strawberry. So we always refer to her as our strawberry. So that was a piece when she was born that I was given by my partner. So it's a very special one. And then before I got the piece from Ollie Marr downstairs of Victoria Park, I actually attempted to paint Victoria Park for my partner, and that stays kind of, he says it's so that he can look at it every night, but it is slightly hidden away in the house, which I don't, argue with too much. And then we've got privacy cafe curtains in here as well, again from East London cloth. I love them so much, but we also have a view of this beautiful blossom tree just out the front, which is kind of rare in East London to have somewhat of a green view amongst the tower blocks. Yeah, that's really nice. Side table, I bought a pair of during lockdown and I completely redid them. So the marble is the same marble that's in the pantry downstairs, which I got offcuts made to fit perfectly on top of each. And then the handle is Beata Hoyman's bow handle. She does amazing hardware as well as being the best interior designer. But I love that handle so much. So we've got matching ones on each side, which I painted in Obsidian Green from Little Green Paint Company. And then these lampshades are the lemon design from Alice Palmer. She does really fun, beautiful box pleat lampshades. And this is, again, Beata Hoyman's collection for original BTC. And they do the best lights, like the definition of the best lights, really classic. We've got some in the kitchen as well, and just super beautiful quality and perfectly like this milk white. And yeah, I love their lights so much. And this is, yeah, the red from her collection, which brings back that red and blue theme that kind of falls through the house. And the bed itself is from Loaf, and super comfy. I really believe in an upholstered bed. I don't understand people that have wooden or metal frames because I read a lot, so need to be able to sit up and read in bed. So yeah, upholstered the whole way for me. The bedding is from Bedfolk. It's linen bed sheets. I do not iron it, I'm afraid, sorry to say, but super comfortable, I think. Linen bed sheets are the best bed sheets in my opinion. And then this is from TB Co. And yeah, I found that quite recently actually, but obviously the red and blue thing was happening and I just went with it. Because yeah, what a thing of beauty. I love that. And I love the checkerboards. The home comes alive when my daughter is in it, for sure. She brings a whole new energy to this house because you realise that you can't be that precious about things. We have a set of bookcases in our study, and all the breakables have like slowly moved up the shelves. And it just, initially I would obviously want my vases to be perfectly styled across each shelf, but she just makes you think about things in a new way, and you begin to appreciate things in a totally different way when you have a little girl running around. And just like that, you can't be too precious. And I think that's like the best way to be is, I do have like lovely plates and things that I would love her not to touch, but if things break, it's not the end of the world, and there's like beautiful ways that you can fix them. And yeah, she has definitely energized this house in new ways that we could never have thought of. Next, I'll show you my daughter's room. Welcome to my daughter's room. So this room definitely is the most fun in the house. Even though it has a neutral base, we did bring in a lot of colour. So we have a bright red feature wall on that side, which is part of the original wooden panelled wall, which is painted in red earth from Farrow and Ball. And then Dimity is the other colour of the room, which is this nice neutral base, which reads really pink in here. And we decided to do a gallery wall in here because she just has so many little trinkets and things that I wanted to use. And so my approach to a gallery wall is to just put one thing up, and the rest will work because you'll force it to. So there's so many nice pieces in here. I don't even know where to start. This is a greetings card from the village that her grandparents live in. This is a Slim Aaron's photo, which we had framed. This is also from Find Homeware, which I mentioned before, FYND on Instagram. This beautiful little Swedish ceramic lion. And then this is actually a hair bow, which I wanted to hang for her. And this is a framed tea towel, because she's obsessed with croissants. She will eat upwards of 7 a week. So she's obsessed, and so I just framed a tea towel. And there's also a mini ceramic croissant as well up there. The lampshades are from Alice Palmer again. Really nice stripe, which brings in the blue and red theme for this room. And then this is our newest addition. It's a wall hanging from Moppet. Really beautiful whale themes. Even though my daughter never really showed any particular interest in whales, it was the theme that I dictated for this room. And she does have a lot around. So this chair is the first thing that we bought for the room, and it was originally a basic club chair, which I got for £3 off eBay. And then I had it reupholstered in this denim blue with the white piping. When you have a new baby, you spend a hell of a lot of time breastfeeding and reading books to them and stuff. And I knew I needed a chair in this room, and the club chair was the most comfiest style. So yeah, that has been very well used, and we still read a book or 3 every night to her before bed. And then this is another Katie Tekla cushion in this Benison snake stripe, I think it's called. But yeah, I love that fabric. Really beautiful, which is kind of like feeds into the rug style as well. And the rug is from The Roost, which is like this online shopping place, which is really beautiful curation of all these different homeware brands. Yeah, I've got a couple of things from them. The lamp was from them as well. And we've got another plants for shade there, which again will never die, so that's always going to be there, which is very special. And some vintage toys. This is a vintage Noah's Ark with the animals, which is so cute. And then a vintage train as well from House of Brunswick. She's on Instagram as well. So yeah, some really nice pieces in there. These are the unicorns as well that I mentioned before, also from Ratch Vintage. So yeah, there's a couple of nice pieces on there. That teddy bear on the end was a gift when she was born, and it's actually got the area of London that we're from on the left foot, and then her date of birth on the other foot, which is quite sweet. So some pieces that I bought for the house have worked perfectly because the measurements have worked out to the centimetre. The set of shelves over there, for example, to the centimetre fit in that space. So that's a huge vintage success. But some don't work out as well. And I thought this set of drawers was going to be a lot bigger than it was when it arrived. But now it's my daughter's pride and joy. She hides all kinds of miniature books and miniature toys in there. So that's very cute. And then this wall hanging is another amazing Etsy find. Literally just searched horse wall hanging because it became horse themed for a while, but I love the colours of this piece. It's this nice metallic embroidery as well, so it really pops in the sun. So this room has changed a lot since she's even been born, so she's 2.5, and it's already had like many iterations. So she didn't even sleep in here for the first year she was with us. So this was very much like a playroom. And she was like have her changing mat up here and things like that, and it has really evolved as she's grown. I think the next iteration will be that like we'll have to move things around again to fit beds and stuff in here, but I love how it keeps changing and all the fun new pieces that you can add into a space. Like I always find like new cushions I can add. These are from a local mother and son duo called 510 Laundry, and I love these cloud cushions, which I bought recently for her. But yeah, there's always things that we change, like the bed will extend at some point out, and yeah, that would be a fun new way to figure out the room for sure. This painting's very special. It's of a town in Croatia called Ravenna, which is where my partner and I went, and it was actually where we had our first consultation call for IVF, which is how we had our daughter. So we decided to get a painting of the village. Well, he bought it for me as a gift, and we've hung it in her room because this is kind of where it all began. I love the colours so much, the oranges of the room, like just picked up every single colour of this whole room. So yeah, that's a really special one. My one piece of advice if you're starting a renovation is don't rush decisions. The decisions that you rush will be the ones that you change. So if you can take time, then do. We did a lot of things out of necessity because we did things quickly to make sure that we, hit deadlines and things like that. But I would try and slow down. Like if I ever did a renovation again, I would want to live in it for a period first. Figure out where the sun hits in the right place, figure out where you really want to sit down and have that coffee. And those decisions like make for such a better home. Like I love when you go into someone's house and they've got decisions that, you can only make because you've lived in a house for 20 years. I think that's like the sign of a really nice, homely house. Next up, I'm going to show you the bathroom. The Georgian architecture of this house originally didn't have a bathroom inside, so there was a toilet in our garden with a delightful asbestos roof as well, which we got rid of when we moved in. And so this bathroom has kind of been shoehorned in by taking space from the 2 bedrooms. It doesn't have a window, but what it doesn't have in natural light, it blooms in other ways. And so this is stone blue from Farrow and Ball, and I put it on all the panelling in the room, and it's just such a sophisticated blue. I love it in here so much. And the handles are the cherry red handles from Matilda Goad again. And the floors, we kept these, we put in these really nice contrast marble tiles from just Tops Tiles, so they were nice and reasonably priced and things like that. And then the walk-in shower we've fit in, which was originally a bath. I decided to change it into a walk-in shower just because there's a beam in this room and it felt like you were just like clambering into the bath. So I wanted to open the space up a bit more. And we've got an archway kind of theme going through the house. So there's an archway here, there's an archway in our living room, and then there's the archways of the bookcases in the study. And I wanted to continue that in here. So we've got these really big porcelain tiles from Porcelain Superstore, topped with a pencil tile just to make it a bit more sophisticated, and brass hardware in there. So we've mixed the hardware throughout, but yes, it was as refined as I could make it in what was quite an awkward shape. But yes, I'm very pleased with this room. And we've also got a vintage mirror in here, which does actually light up from behind usually. So that's a really special 70s piece in the old home. So I made sure that we have art in every single room. So these are 2 pieces by Print Sisters Archive. Really colourful, nice pieces, and I painted the frames as well. So I didn't want this room to feel too bathroomy. So the panelling makes it feel more like a room, and the art makes it feel more like a room too. This is from Pookie Lights. Pookie do great, really, really well-priced lighting. And yeah, I love that brass in here. And then I do feel passionately about toilet roll holders, and I think that they should be held at both sides. And this toilet roll holder is the most beautiful available on the market. I think it's called Aston Matthews, the shop. Good Bones, who's another big Instagram account, Good Bones London, she has the brass version of that as well. And yeah, I found our conversation recently where we were talking about toilet roll holders, and it made me laugh. Everything is special in a interior designer's house, and I love that. So I started my Instagram during lockdown because we bought the house when we couldn't see our friends and family. So I wanted for them to see how we were getting on, mainly because my parents were extremely worried about why we'd bought a completely uninhabitable house during lockdown. So we wanted to reassure them that we were doing okay. And then slowly I found loads of ideas on Instagram. Like, I'm an obsessive scroller, and it was just serving me so much good stuff. Like, there's so many other great content creators out there that were really inspiring this house. And I really do feel like this kind of house was built by Instagram in a way, because there's been so many things I've found on Instagram, loads of the vintage I source on Instagram. But I guess it's resonated because, you know, it's just a normal house in London. Like, it's very rare to have a house in London, but this is just a nice, modest one that is somewhat achievable, and we haven't gone like too over the top with super expensive finishings and things like that. Like, we've spent wisely, and yeah, maybe that could be why it's resonated with a couple of people. Welcome to our walled garden. So I'm not very green fingered, but this very, very mature wisteria was here when we arrived. And you have struck gold because you're here during the 2 weeks that it flowers during the year. Which is absolutely incredible, and definitely the highlight of the year when it comes to our garden. But there's a lot of original features. The walledness was really special, so we wanted to add this wall as well, which was originally a fence, and we kept the original brick pathway which goes to the end of the garden. We originally had this awful huge outdoor toilet here which we knocked down, but we kept all the bricks from the building and created a little outdoor patio area with the bricks. And that's exactly where the sun hits first thing in the morning, so that's the perfect morning coffee spot. So I love that area. And then this is where we do all of our hosting over summer. The patio we added in is Indian limestone, probably needs a clean. And the pots are all just been recently filled for you, so yeah. Hydrangea is my favourite flower, so I have about 5 in the garden, which are just coming up now. So this is a good time for them. And yeah, there's also, I added some lion feet to all of my pots, which are just a bit of, that's my one mad thing, I guess, for the garden, the lion feet. This is some jasmine, which is growing up and desperate for the light when the wisteria is stealing it all. And then I've got hydrangea coming up on these sides, and these are a couple of roses as well. So the yellow rose always comes first. And then later on we've got a bright pink one here. That will come down in a few months. But yeah, I do my best. I'm not the best gardener. So for us, home is definitely a place of like meeting and having our friends together. We are definitely the hosts in our friendship group, and same with our families. And like, this home is at its best, like at Christmas, for birthday parties. And yeah, I love hosting people, and like, it's so special to have a home and be able to host people. And that is something that, you know, that really means something to me. Homeworthy, thanks so much for coming around my house, but Instagram isn't going to scroll itself, so I better get back. Bye.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Rosalind. Welcome to my home in London. Let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name's Rosalind Miller, and this is my home in London. My background is actually, I would say, as a scientist. So I started out my career as a chemist, and I later went on to do a master's and PhD in public health, and that led me into a career in academia, where I worked as an assistant professor at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, which is an amazing institution and a very beautiful building if you ever get the chance to visit London. I'm not an artist. I spent most of my childhood doing sports and playing really competitive tennis. I wasn't good at art, but during the process of this renovation that we just completed, I've really sort of found this creative side and unleashed all of my creative ideas and things that are in my head and colours, and almost put it onto paper, into the house, as it were. But given my background, I almost find it a bit of a surprise to be sat here talking to you guys about interiors and my home. Welcome to my beloved hallway, which is where we store all of the coats and shoes. And as you will notice, they are not on show. So when we renovated, I said before, my number one thing was that I wanted all of the hallway clutter that we normally used to be tripping over the minute we came in, hidden away. And so I designed and my builders built this beautiful cupboard. And I'm just all about the function. We could sit down and put our shoes on, which is here, and everything is stored in here. So originally, I obviously had visions of everything being stored, and it looked like we have so many coats that there wasn't actually going to be enough space for coats and shoes. So my builders ended up doing this really clever trick where we put in a little high up thing that you pull down, and that enables us to have all this extra shoe space under there, which I think is a really neat trick. This area where I am actually used to be a kitchen. So you used to come in and the kitchen was all on this level. And when you do an extension in a Victorian terrace, you create this notorious middle room that is a sort of thoroughfare. And people have done all sorts with them. Some people make it into a cozy little snug because they're often a little bit dark because it's in the middle of the house. And I just knew that the coat storage was a massive priority. So we have got that. And when we go down, you'll see what I've put in the rest of the space that used to be the kitchen. So another little thing that I've got in here is this little cubby. I wanted an old piece of furniture because I just think that mixes things up and I don't like everything to be too shiny. So I love the green of this. I found it on eBay, and then we ended up, I got this before this whole section was built, so they were able to build the staircase and everything, so it fits absolutely perfectly. And that's where, we keep our work IDs and school lanyards, keys. Everybody's got their own cupboards. There's one drawer dedicated for a hairbrush and hairbands because hairbands are always going missing. So the idea of having a dedicated space, my hope was that we would know where to find them. So that's just a really handy thing that makes family life that little bit easier. These little candle holders I think are really adorable. They're from an online vintage store called Wallace Vintage, and I've bought a few things. She's amazing at lighting. She sources really sweet things. And then I've just popped in the brightest pink candles I can find. One of my favourite things to do in London is go down to Columbia Road on a Sunday where they have the flower market. There's an amazing cake shop called Lily Vanilli, so don't miss that. And then there's a gorgeous candle shop that has all these little coloured glasses, vases to put flowers in, and the most amazing array of candles you've ever seen. So I love to go there, and I've got pretty much a whole drawer in my kitchen of every colour that you can imagine. Although the house is finished there, it is still a work in progress. If I waited for the house to be finished to invite you guys in, you would never come. So we are in London. My home is based in North London. I am a born and bred Londoner, and I actually grew up not far from here in a really beautiful Victorian house. And this house is also from the Victorian era and not too far from my mum, which is nice. So the home, as I said, it's a period property dating back to the Victorian era. And I'd say that the style of the home is actually quite traditional. I grew up, as I said, in a Victorian property, and I really love those features. The house actually, it's an end of terrace, so it's a little bit different from the others in the terrace, and it actually was a commercial property. So I was standing outside early on when we had recently bought the house, and a man stopped me and said, "Do you know about the history of your house?" I said, "No," and he said, "It actually used to be a bakery, and I used to play with the baker's son." So although it is a period property, because it was used for commercial purposes, a lot of the original features weren't here. So there aren't lovely fireplaces, there wasn't any ceiling coving, and we did try to put in a few of those things. But although the style is traditional, I try to add my own little take and give it a little bit of a modern twist by using colour. And as we go around the house, that will become quite evident. Now I'll take you down to the rest of the middle room. So So then we're going to go down to the stairs, note the minty risers in my favourite colour, into the rest of the middle room. As I said, this all used to be on one level and the house actually used to end here. So this was the kitchen and it was really dark and it was quite small, and it felt like for the size of the house, the living area, which was this kitchen and living room, was quite small compared to the rest of the house. So that was our thinking behind doing an extension. And as I said, what to do with the middle room is an age-old question, I think, for people doing extensions. And we've got our hallway cupboards that I talked about, but what we ended up doing is putting this beautiful piano here. So this piano is from the house I grew up in, and I think it's really beautiful. I'm not a major piano player. I tinkered with it a little bit as a child. My kids tinker with it a little bit as children, and I think it's just a really nice thing to have in the heart of the home, and obviously it's really nostalgic because it's from my childhood. And we designed all of the dimensions and all of the space to make sure it fit. And then on the other side is my desk and my work area. Thought about maybe putting a sofa here or some chairs just to chill out and relax, but actually we've got quite a lot of seating in the kitchen and in the living room, so that felt unnecessary. And I don't really like the idea of being locked away in a room, squirreled away from everything else doing my work. I actually really like being in the heart of the home. I'm right next to the kitchen. I can make endless teas and coffees. And my kids play computer games here. They do their homework. It's just a really useful space. Or if you just want to jump on and do a quick email, but the kids are about, so I feel like it just works. And it's not ideal when I'm on a call and my kids are standing behind as I'm on a Zoom call. That's maybe the downside of having your space there. But it's really functional. And so this is like my area. So I've got pictures of my friends and the kids, and this notice board was made for me by this lovely small business, this lady that I found on Instagram called Handmade by Harriet, and she does these custom notice board, and obviously I got her to make me one with rainbow ribbons, and it just, every time I sit there and I'm working, I've got my rainbow glass, I've got my really cute notice board with lots of people that I love on it, and I've got this really pretty picture too, because let's be honest, it is always grey and raining in London, so it just makes me feel happy when I'm working. So as you can see, I've collected a few little things that I've put on display here. The colour glass, I just can't get enough of it, and I hope to maybe one day for this collection to maybe splurge over to this side. But it's stuff I picked up, some of it in a thrift store in Sweden, some of it here, some have been gifts, and I really like just arranging them in a colour coded series, and it's just very aesthetically pleasing. And then on this side, as I said, I would like the glass collection to grow, but for now I've just put some other favourite little bits and bobs that I've collected. I got this really cute tea set in a shop in Bordeaux on a trip with some girlfriends, and I bought it, I originally had 8, and I bought it back on the Eurostar, carried it, and then as I got to St Pancras International, the bottom of the bag opened, or it was quite close to the floor, and the bottom bits all smashed. So every time I look at it, I think, oh, it could have been more. But luckily, I've still got a few in my favourite colour, and just some other little bits. This really cute, this tea set was actually a woman, a really lovely woman who makes prints. She saw it in a local charity shop. She's one of my Instagram friends, and she tagged me and said, oh, Rosalind would really love this. And I messaged her back, I said, would you get it for me if I send you the money? And she did, so that's the good side of social media, I guess. So welcome to the kitchen. As I said, the kitchen used to be in the room where we just were, and where I'm standing, actually, it used to be an internal courtyard. So the layout was pretty quirky before. There was, from about here, this whole left side, was a corridor, and that from the entranceway that there was a door, and you walked down this quite thin, wasn't super usable space, quite thin corridor, which led to an office at what is now the back of the patio. So this area, you would step out from the kitchen into this internal courtyard, which was it was not super inspiring. It was just a piece of concrete, really. And then there was the office, as I said, at the end. And now it's really, our kitchen before was a little bit dark. It didn't get loads of light, and the glass roof has just let the outside in. When the roof was first installed, I honestly felt like when I stepped from the middle room into the kitchen, I felt like I was going outside. So this is where we spend the majority of our time. It's really lovely to just be bright, and even on a grey day like today, it feels bright and it's just a nice space to be in. So one of my favourite things in the kitchen is the storage cupboards, which I'm sounding like a bit of a broken record now. But as I said, it was one of the first things I basically think, how can I hide my kids' stuff? So there's one for adults and one for kids, and this one, it's so many board games, all of their arts and crafts, because those things I found they were always typically being used at the kitchen table. So I didn't want it away in their rooms, and they want to be down here, they want to be spending time in the main area, but I didn't want it all in show. So these are beautiful. I just love the wavy handles. This beam up here, when it arrived, it was a rusty red colour, and the roof had been installed. The roof was made factory finished in RAL 6019, which is the best colour. It's the colour of the beams and the roof and the windows and the doors and the tap. And green and red isn't a combination to me that is super obvious. Maybe it is to other people. But when I saw the rusty red with the pastels, I thought it went really nicely. So a little tribute to that red beam, I decided to paint the wavy handles in a pop of red. And I think it looks really sweet amongst the pinkies and the pastels that are in the rest of the room. And then it brings you into, this is our dining area, and I love the idea of having a seating bench. Just, you know, people are always lounging around, and you've got lots of little spots where you can sit, and you can, sometimes my kids and their friends, they're just all hanging out on the walls, or you can sit there, you could read a book, you can scroll your phone, you can just chill out there. And one of the number one things I wanted in our kitchen was, I'd seen these massive pivot windows, and the minute I saw one of those, I thought, yes, really want one of those. I love the idea of just having one huge window that you can open, and then from the inside, swing your legs over and just hop out into the garden. So we've managed to make that a reality. I can just show you. Sometimes the door's a little bit stiff and it doesn't make me look very good, but let's hope, yeah. So it's this huge window, and in summer, we just leave it open. And again, it's connecting with the outside, and you get to look out onto beautiful greenery. And I just love that. This is my favorite spot to sit and have a cup of tea and just have a few minutes daydreaming, looking out the window and relaxing. So as you can see, we've got this checker floor, which originally I think people think, I don't know what they think, but they don't think that I painted it, which I did. The floor was one of the decisions. There are so many decisions when you're doing a renovation. It really is overwhelming. But the kitchen floor was something I just could not decide on. I went back and forth. At one point, I really wanted a concrete floor. It was quite pricey. We couldn't have plain, thick wooden planks, which I think are really nice because there's underfloor heating as well. I played with the idea of cork because I thought that would be really nice and cozy underfoot. And yeah, just went back and forth. And in the end, I had seen a checkerboard floor being painted, probably online. And I thought, I have to do that. I'm going to do that. So I ordered the cheapest engineered wood that I could possibly find, because then I didn't feel bad painting over it. And I got it unfinished, because obviously painting over a lacquered or finished surface is pretty tricky. So got it unfinished, had it installed, and that was a bit of a scientific experiment. Spent quite a long time drawing out the lines, doing the most meticulous masking tape. At one point I think I was going to do the checked blue, but I think it's classic. It's an off-white with a little pinky undertone. And it's a miracle that it worked out, to be honest, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I started on this side and then I did that side, and where the checks converged in the middle, because you imagine if every little check is a millimetre going out of sync, at some point when you converge your lines, you're probably going to have a little bit of a situation. Luckily, and I didn't plan this, that situation is under the dining table. So if you're going to try this yourself, then maybe have your checks converge in a spot that isn't that obvious. Coming into the main bit of the kitchen, the marble, I just wanted marble. I think in our last apartment we had a quartz worktop, and there's just something about natural stone that is so beautiful. So when we got the chance to choose a new worktop, I wanted to give marble a go. And I know that I was worried, or people worry about the upkeep and if it scratches and if it stains. And the first week when we moved in, I was like, no, don't put that there, don't do that, that's the marble, sort of going around with the thing. Then I realized that that wasn't really me, and I could never live like that. So just let it be. I'm like, oh, they have it in Italy everywhere, and they have it in cafes, and they have it in restaurants, and I'm sure if it is good enough for them and it lasts many, many years, I'm sure it'll be fine, and it's absolutely fine. And I don't worry about it at all. It's part of the way it ages, it's supposed to be part of the beauty, so just embrace that. I absolutely loved the veining. I really wanted something super veiny. And as you can see, the veining in here is actually a little bit green. So that's why I chose this one, and it goes really well with the rest of the colours. And we ended up taking it up the backsplash. So it needed 2 slabs of marble to cover the whole area. And had we not done the backsplash, it would have felt like such a waste of the marble. So we tried to eke out, you have to buy the stone, so you want to make it worthwhile. So we tried to eke out every last bit of it using as much as possible. And I think it's really striking, and it's a lovely feature. So when it came to designing the kitchen, I've got a friend who's a designer, and I said, where do I start? How do I know what sizes to do, and where I should have cupboards and where I should have drawers? And this is not really something that I've done before. And she gave me the most amazing piece of advice that I pass on to anyone that's doing a renovation. And that is, write down everything that you own that you want in your kitchen, and plan in advance. Do you want that in a drawer? Do you want that in a cupboard? And use that as your guide. And that's exactly what I did, literally down to the sort of napkins, So a friend of mine had bought me these really beautiful napkins for my 40th birthday that are embroidered with our names, and some say guest, and they're really, really sweet. So I put on my little drawing, one drawer, napkins, just because I knew that there would be a place for those. There's even a drawer for Tupperware and all those sort of ugly plastic things that you don't want anyone to see but are necessary. And it's worked out so well. It's just so practical. That's the thing that I really appreciate about being able to do your own renovation. It's so functional, and it really works for you, and it's just so practical. So the dishwasher is right next to where all of the plates and bowls are stored. All of the cooking utensils are just in a drawer right under. I'm a big fan of drawers because obviously you can pull it out, and in a cupboard, the stuff at the back is a bit tricky. So wherever it's been possible, I've put drawers. And the other thing I really wanted was a breakfast station. I didn't want all the clutter, the toaster, the coffee stuff. I didn't really want all of that to be on show because we're not super tidy, and I don't think that we could keep it perfect all the time. So I wanted that behind doors. So this is like a little breakfast station. I mean, it's not perfectly tidy, but it's got all of our appliances that I don't really want them on show all the time. My daughter loves organising things, so she's always putting she made me take her to IKEA so she could buy all these storage containers, because we watched this program called Sort Your Life Out, and she was so excited. That weekend we were in IKEA buying all of the storage containers so that we could make our life look very organised. And that's a bit of a hobby of hers, thankfully for me. But that's just, so that's our breakfast area, and every morning, and then we just close it and it's out of sight. I also wanted to have a little shelf because it's sweet to just, again, bring in little more pops of colour. store just pretty things that make you smile every day. I've got a few little vases and pictures, candles, just things that look nice and make the space a bit more smiley. So originally, when I was choosing a sink and a tap, I was really in love with this brass tap from Devol, and it was an aged brass. It's just the most beautiful brass thing you've ever seen. But to get that, and then I think it also came, they also have a little hot water tap in the brass as well. So at first I thought, oh, wouldn't it be so sweet to have that brass and the little hot water brass? But those taps are eye-wateringly expensive. And as I'm sure anyone who does a renovation know, most of the money goes on the labour. And when it comes to the point of putting in all of your things and finishing off, there's not really a huge amount of budget left. So I thought, okay, if I can't have the brass, I don't want an imitation brass. I don't want one that's not as good, because every time I looked at it, I would just think, oh, but it's not the Devol one. So I ended up going for this super fun, colourful minty, and I'm sure it's finished in the same RAL colour as the rest of the doors and windows, because it's when it arrived, I held it up. I was like, yeah, that's a perfect match with the door. And it's really cute and it fits in. And it was not super expensive either. So one of my favourite features, I just had this vision of having this kitchen and having a double door, and I had this vision of myself opening and flinging the doors out and sort of dancing off into the garden. Obviously, I only ever open this door and walk out of it like this, but you know, the idea was there, and I think it's very pleasing to have a double door. I think it just looks nice. A really nice company, they made the doors, it's made out of timber. I really wanted timber for some reason. So the pivot window and the doors, those were made by one company, and the roof is actually made of aluminium. But because they're finished in the same colour, you can't really tell that they're different materials. So this light is another one of my end of renovation budget dwindling hacks. It's quite an iconic PH5 light, and in these pastel colours, and my friend sent it to me, she said, oh my goodness, this light would look amazing in your house. But it was £600. So I thought, that's just not going to happen. So I actually bought kind of a knockoff, just a plain white one online. And then I just painted it in the same pastel-y colours. And most of them I already have. I've got the biggest array of all of this seating bench. It lifts up for storage, and I've got loads of paint in there. So I already have most of the paint, and then I just painted it in an eggshell paint, which is a little bit of a sheen, and also it can just be wiped clean because a lot of dust kind of settles on here. And it's really pretty. And it was quite an event though, in order to get it over the dining table. I feel like doing renovations is just constant problem solving. And all the time, you know, I'd come to site, I was always here like checking on things, putting my paints on the wall, like, hey, what's going on today? And there was always a problem. Like, oh, this drain run isn't going to work, and the building control won't sign it off, and this is a problem, and that is a problem. And I'd always joke and be like, okay, solutions, not problems. I don't want to hear the problems. But I always envisaged having the light over the dining table. And then obviously once the glass roof was in, the builders are looking at me saying, so where exactly is your light? How are we going to hang? We can't hang your light over a glass roof. I was like, So we came up with this really cool system. My husband's first degree was in engineering, so I'm pretty sure that this was his mastermind. And yeah, it worked out, and I'm really happy that we could fulfill my vision. I toyed with what art to put up in the walls here and had lots of ideas, but ended up I picked up this, during the course of the renovation, I picked up this little print from the Tate Modern, and I love it. It's called Colours of London. So obviously it fits in with the colourful home, but also I just love London so much. I'm such a diehard Londoner. I will never leave. And I feel like, you know, some people identify as their job or as their nationality or as, you know, various things, or as a sport or something like that. But I really identify as a Londoner, and I just love that this is colours from across London. I really like the parakeets one. So we live quite near Hampstead Heath where you see lots of parakeets. And yeah, I just love that it's all little bits of London, some parts that I know well and some parts that I don't know as well, but it's a sweet picture. So in terms of my personal style, I would say that I just never grew up, and I'm a little bit like a big kid, and I just embrace the things that I love. I don't really care what anybody else thinks. And it's obviously such a privilege to have the opportunity to do a renovation. And I don't want a cookie cutter home. I've really tried to put my personality into the house. And as I said, my background is as a scientist. And as a child, I was more of an athlete. I was not good at art. I could not even draw a stick person. So I didn't even really know that I was a creative person. And doing this renovation sort of sparked this inner creativity that I didn't know was there. And I've really just let loose and chosen things and colours that I love to have on display and had a lot of fun with it. Okay, let's come out into the patio garden. So this space actually used to be the office. It was the weird corridor, an office which went from the back wall up to about here, and it had that entrance, which that's a sliding door that goes onto the street. And then, as I said, the internal concrete courtyard that went all the way in where the kitchen is. And then after we finished our building work, it was a massive ditch, essentially, and just full of rubble and dirt, and it was hard to imagine that it could ever be anything else. But interestingly, although we actually reduced the square footage of our interior through doing the extension, it feels like we have double the living space. But actually, if you look at the square footage, because the corridor was very long, apparently the corridor, when you look at the numbers, the corridor and the office had more floor space than our kitchen. So we actually increased the size of our garden by, I think, about 5 square meters. So that kind of blows my mind. But I had all of these things that I wanted to fit into the garden. And it was just, as I said, this blank ditch, and I didn't know where to start. So this really lovely husband and wife local team was recommended to me by a friend. And I thought, you know what, it's worth just paying a little bit of money to get a design for the garden, because I'm so out of my depth here. I've no idea what I'm doing. So I had all of these ideas. I was like, I want to have seating, and I want to have flowers, and I just want to see green everywhere, and I want it to be really whimsical. And, you know, I had this huge list, and cobbles would be great. And, you know, just, can you just do something and fit all of that in? And then sent them about 500 inspiration pictures. So like, yeah, if you could just, with those 20 square meters, just fit all that in, that would be great. Oh yeah, and my husband wants a bike shed, and my brother gave me this barbecue, so I guess we need to house that somewhere. So it was a really big list. And they did it. They made this amazing design, and they used all of these little tips and tricks, and honestly, it was such a good use. It was a few £100. It was really good use of money to get this design, because I would have probably just done something, you know, straight. It needed, the way that the levels were to the street, it needed a couple of steps at some point. So they did all these little tricks, like they've done it in this shape, and apparently that creates an illusion of more space. And there's little paths, like some steps to the bike shed and some concrete steps out. And apparently when you have paths as well, it looks like you're going somewhere. And that again just gives you the illusion that the garden is bigger than it actually is. And it's been planted up, and it's exactly, obviously it was only planted this spring, I think. So it hasn't really had time to grow, and the walls are not yet completely covered, but I think that it will grow, and it's a really nice spot to relax. Or the other thing that I wanted, that was the number one of my list, was this area here is in total sun trap. So I said we need to have seating for me to just sit in the sun and have a coffee and just like bask and get all the vitamin D, because as I said, London is very grey and I love it so much, but the weather really doesn't play ball. So again, I can't take any credit for this. It was the idea of the garden designers. They had the idea. So as I said, it was full of rubble when they came to it. When they came to first look, I think they were a bit sort of like, oh, what are we going to do here? And they had the idea of, for the seating, these gabions. So gabions are these metal cages. And then they filled it with all the rubble in the garden. So all of this concrete, you can see broken down concrete, that is actually from our build, which is really cool because it's, reusing the materials and it was already here. And then obviously, because I'm me, I got my RAL 6019 in a exterior paint and went around and painted the metal cages minty so that it matched the back of the house, because I'm ridiculous, but I love it. And yeah, it's just enough. I'm not a gardener. I can't be dealing with mowing the lawn. So I love just having a little bit of flowers and greenery to look at. My youngest daughter, she loves playing in the mud, so that's her dedicated pot to just come out here and dig and play with snails. And as you can see, she's put mud everywhere. It's all over the patio, like ruining it. But she has a lovely time out here. And it's honestly, it's not super big, but it's enough for us. So obviously you can see that this is all part of the new extension. And it was built in London stock brick. So this is actually a conservation area. So there was so many hoops to jump through in order to satisfy the conservation committee and the local planning and all various groups. We actually started the renovation at the top of the house because we had applied for a 2-story extension. So you can see there's another little room up there, which is also in the new London stock bricks. They're reclaimed bricks, so I think they fit in the area really nicely. But you can see what's been built and what was there originally. But actually, on our first planning application, the room at the top there was rejected. So we decided to, and it said the reason was that it was not in keeping with the local area, but every single terrace house, every single corner house on the terrace has one. So we thought, I feel like we've got a pretty good case here to appeal. So we put together an appeal, marking out all of the houses on the street. Like, this is where the science comes in, and put it in. And it's 3 to 6 months, the planning appeal. It was so we started the build and we started at the top. We're like, oh yeah, no, by the time we get down, we'll have had our answer. And finally, the height of the kitchen depended on the story on top. So we couldn't really start, because if we weren't going to get the second floor extension, we would have lost quite a bit of height in the extension, which we didn't really want to do. So that was a huge hold up and it was really stressful, but we got it. The appeal was overturned in the end. So I feel like you often don't hear success stories of planning, so it's worth appealing. And yeah, I also painted the plastic black gutters minty, because why not? So we moved into this home in 2020 in the middle of the 2 COVID lockdowns. We quickly managed to buy and sell in between, and we were living around the corner before in a smaller apartment, and we were keen to get a little bit more space. And what I loved about this house was the location. So it's a really great location. It's on a really cute street. We live in a gorgeous neighborhood that I didn't want to leave, which is where we were before. It's got such a beautiful community. We've got so many friends. My kids go to local schools. So I really wanted to keep that, best friends with the guys in the local coffee shop. So we wanted to stay in this area. And this home, people really were not falling over themselves to buy it. So it was in a livable state, but the layout was a little bit odd. But we could instantly see, if we just moved this and added this on, and we could add a bathroom in here, and this room's really large, but maybe we could squeeze in a bathroom and that might be a better use of space. So we took it on as a project, and with the aim of creating something that would work for how we lived. The idea of just moving into something that somebody else has made, it might work for them, but it might not work for you. So that was one of the real appeals of renovating and just making the space work for our family life. Now let's head back inside and I'll show you the living room. Hi. So I'm going to put this enormous pocket door, which I think is very cool, to a side and come into our living room. So this room, I would say, is a work in progress. There is not much on the walls, and there will be a coffee table one day. There's quite a few bits that aren't finished, but we're getting there slowly. And this is just the TV is in here. So although we've tried to disguise it in one of those frame TV where it looks like a picture, that is the main drawer of this room for our kids. They probably spend the most time in here. It's east facing, so it gets the morning light. So it's not super bright, but it's quite a cozy space, and I wanted it to be decorated in, I think there's two things that you can do if something's not really bright. You can go for something dark and like embrace the cozy, but the dark colours just don't work for me. So I've gone for something like quite muted, although it's painted this whole bookcase in a rainbow. It's quite a muted rainbow, and I actually find it really calming in here. When we first bought the house, as I said, that was the kitchen. We had our dining table here. We lived in the house for 2 years as it was while we got all of the permissions and thought about the new layout and thought about what we wanted to do. So we had our dining table here, and this wall was a bookcase. But it was slightly piecemeal. It was like in 3 different sections, and then it came around the corner as well. And then there was a sort of weird door with half glass. So we opened up the entrance, so it's felt a little bit more grand. We added back in all of the period features, like all of the coving and the picture rail. None of that was here. And then we just rebuilt a bookcase because I really love the idea of having a wall of books. We already had quite a lot of books to start with. My mum's house is essentially just a library. I have some books that belong to my grandparents, like all of the old Puffin editions, quite a few that I've put up at the top just so that they don't get damaged, are from them. And I'm not quite there yet, but I think we've got like 1 or 2 sections still to fill. And I know that sometimes with bookcases, people do all these really cool styling things, but I think I'm more of a big picture person, and when it comes down to the tiny little details, that's not necessarily my forte. And I just love the idea of having a wall of books. And then I didn't have to do any like faffy styling. And it's a library. Apparently, if it's 1,000 books or more, it's considered a library. So I think that's a pretty cool thing to have in your living room. I don't actually come in here that often. It's maybe on like Saturday nights, the kids want to watch Strictly Come Dancing, or sometimes after school they just want to chill out. So I just wanted to have a really comfy sofa to spread out on, and I just went for something really neutral so that it could just sort of blend in, and then popped on a load of colourful cushions to make it extra comfy and give a little splash of colour and personality. And yeah, there's a lot of lounging that goes on there. As you can see, the bookcase is a sort of rainbow, and the top colour of the bookcase is in keeping with the ceiling. And I painted upstairs in the spare room a pink ceiling. So we did the house from the top up. So the way that it worked out, a lot of things that went on at the top fed into things that then happened later, or informed decisions that happened later. And I painted the spare room ceiling this bright pink colour that I'll show you later. And a pink ceiling is just a great idea, I've learned. So it gives off a little glow. It's really warm, and I just thought I need more pink ceilings in my life. So this colour is actually called Serene Peach, and all of the colours, pretty much most of the colours in my home, are from a small British brand called Yes Colours, and they're quite a new company, and their paint comes in pouches, which is really cool because paint, obviously you've got these big tins, and then it's really hard to dispose of, and it's really bad for the environment, and their pouches are actually recyclable. So they've got they've got really great colours, if you love colour, really vibrant, really a whole range of stuff that you wouldn't find in perhaps more traditional paint companies. But they also have this sustainable element. And this is all of their muted, so they have different ranges, and this is mostly from the Serene range because, as I said, I wanted it to be really calming and serene. And so Serene Peach is what's on the ceiling, and I think it does just what it says on the packet, which is make it feel serene. This light, this is from the same lady as the candle the bow candle holders, and it's that pop of red mixing with pastels that I just can't get enough of. You'll notice that when I really like something, I just use it again and again and again, and you know, you can never get too much of a good thing. And I just fell in love with it and thought, yeah, that's the one. That's going to be such a nice statement in our living room. And it was a bit of a nightmare to get it up. I think, you know, with old lights, it's always a little bit tricky. I really loved the idea of having a wood burner because, you know, I wanted this room to feel cozy, and it's used mostly in the evenings. And, you know, the winters get pretty dark and dreary here, but this would have been where the flue, behind here would have been where a flue could go. But actually, all of our waste pipes actually come down there, and you can't really have waste pipes going up and a fire coming down and a fire going up. That's not really going to work out. So I wanted to look into electric, but sometimes I don't know, they maybe look a bit naff. But what we did was we just bought this, I think it was on eBay again, this little fireplace. And then we popped in this little, it's a little grate essentially, and it allows you to burn, it's basically this, and it has cotton wool in it, and then you pour bioethanol fuel into it, and you can essentially put this in anything. You can put it in a fireplace grate, you can put it in a wood burner, and then you can have a little real fire just from burning bioethanol, and you don't need a flue or anything. This is just completely for decoration because I think it looks really cute. And then I got this tile. I mean, this tile is essentially my entire personality, and I always wanted to use it somewhere in the kitchen or in the bathroom. It just never quite worked out. And I had a few samples of it, and then I thought, finally, oh, I can use it under the wood burner. And I just ordered a few more samples, and I might build a little frame to go around it eventually, because as I said, we're still a work in progress in here. So before we go upstairs, I'll just show you into our little downstairs loo. So as I said, in the original house, you would come in and then there was the entrance down to that funny little corridor thing. And as I said, we're end of terrace, so it's a little bit different. Normally, your front door is at the front of the terrace and then you go through and it's all quite long, but I really love having the entrance on the side. I think it makes the space a little bit more usable, and I just like the flow of it. But I really wanted to have a loo downstairs because that's just really handy for kids and guests and everything. So we popped one in, and as you can see in a minute, I just wanted to get a really fun wallpaper and wallpaper all over the walls and the ceiling and just make it a really fun little space. So we're going to go up the stairs now, and you'll notice that maybe the stairs are not the most traditional stairs you've ever seen. I got really into the rainbows as the course of the renovation went on, and as you'll see, I have painted them in a rainbow, and I think stairs just lend themselves really well to that because there's just that natural going up, and it's a natural place to put a gradient of colour on, and it's obviously running through the core of the home on every floor, and kept the rest of the hallways quite simple. So we added all this panelling in, which I think is really beautiful, painted it in a really neutral colour. You know, the doors are all really neutral, the walls are just white, and then there's just this pop of crazy rainbow as you go up, and it was really a labour of love getting all of the old paint. I mean, there was a red carpet originally, there was gold, like spirally wallpaper, and I spent really hours and days like heat gunning and sanding before I actually got around to making my little stencil and doing my pattern and painting it all in the most joyous colours you'll ever see. So I love this print, which is from a really cute online store called Le Print. And yeah, on your way out, just don't forget to shut the front door. Okay, so I really love this picture, so I think we need to just pause a second. It's probably only me that loves this picture, but I'll just take a little bit of time to say something about it. So as I said, we work in public health, and I found this, it's a reproduction map of, so it's Soho back in the 1850s, and it's John Snow's cholera map. So there's this big outbreak of cholera in the 1850s in London, and a guy called John Snow, who's now known as the modern father of epidemiology. He made a little map, and all of these little marks indicate a case of cholera. And because he was trying to figure out, what is the cause of this outbreak? What can we do to stop it? And what he noticed is that the concentration of cases is all around a water pump. And so, so many people are dying of cholera. And so they isolated the pump. Like, I think there's some famous thing of him going and like snapping the handle off. And that was the source of it. And then that essentially stopped the outbreak. So yeah, epidemiology is obviously the study of disease and how and why it affects certain groups. So I just think that's a really nice thing. And it's like got a little meaning. So this is the main bedroom, and I would say that this is maybe my attempt at trying to decorate like a grown-up. So you'll notice it's not all full of the pastels. I had this idea that we already had these wooden cupboards, sort of made of ply, and I had this idea that I wanted the walls to be this darkish green colour, and it was kind of inspired by nature, or to be a bit like a forest, and it would just be dark green and wood. So the floors are wood and the cupboards are wood, and then there's this like lovely deep green colour all over. And once it was all done, it was all painted in a green, and I ended up like going around afterwards like adding blue on the skirting boards and like painting the coving pink, because I just can't help myself. So adding those little touches in. But it's quite calming, and again, it's a room that's mostly used in the evening, so it's a darker colour, and I think it's a little bit different from my natural style, but I do like it. Originally this is our bed that we bought from our old flat, and it was a really sad millennial grey fabric, and every time I looked at it, my heart just sank a little bit. It didn't go with the green. It looked terrible, but it was perfectly good, really comfy bed, and there was not really any reason to get a new one. And so what I ended up doing, I just had this vision one day. Some days I'm just walking around and just get this idea. And I thought, maybe I could, cover it. It's just fabric. So maybe I could take the bed apart and just cover it with a fabric. And I just saw like blue and white stripes in my head. And I was searching online for blue and white stripy fabric, but I couldn't really find anything, or it was like super pricey. And I ended up finding these curtains in this fabric. And what I did was I just bought 2 pairs, and I put one as the curtains, and then I used the other pair to upholster this bed. And when I say upholster, that sounds like I've got loads of skills and it's really fancy. What it essentially means is I got a staple gun and took the bed to pieces and then just stapled on the fabric, and it was really easy. And I think the effect's really cool. And now we don't have a sad millennial grey bed anymore. Then there's like a couple of vintagey pieces. So my little dresser that I got from a vintage shop, and also these little cane rattani bedside tables that I found on Facebook Marketplace, that's one of my favourite hobbies, is to waste hours of my life scrolling on Facebook Marketplace to look for those odd bargains that you can find. And I like the idea of having a chest of drawers as a bedside table. So that's what I've got on my side, because then again, you can just put all of the stuff out of sight and just helps to keep things a little bit more tidy. And then we've got these really sweet little pinky lights that move, so that's quite handy. And then these gorgeous little pictures that I bought from a sweet store called the Bow Store. And she curates and collects art from all over the world. And I think these are sort of mid-century Swedish paints, and I just love the colours. I thought they're so pretty, and it's called Posy 1 and Posy 2. And when they arrived, there's some really sweet, on the back, there's a really sweet little notes, and it looked like it was grandparents to their granddaughter giving them the prints, and it's got some sweet writing on the back. And the colours of each of them are a little bit different, but it's nice to have, again, these little vintage pieces. we've got another little pocket door here. That's a bit of a favourite design feature. So we managed to, originally the house had one really big bathroom, which although is lovely and feels very luxurious, felt like in London, when space is a bit of a premium, having a massive bathroom is maybe not the best use of space. So we ended up turning the one bathroom that was here originally into a spare room with an ensuite, and this ensuite, and a storage cupboard at the end. So that's almost like 3 or 4 rooms we've fitted in there. And that's just really handy, and it's allowed our daughters to have their own bathroom. That was one of my top renovation lists from the beginning. I was like, those girls, you know, I've got 2 teenage girls in my future, and I wanted not to share a bathroom with them. I don't know if my background in science has how that's affected the design, but I think that my husband is also a professor, and I think that we both have quite analytical minds, and I think that that's really useful when you're thinking about space and how to get the best layouts. Obviously the colour and the finishing touches, that all came after, but I think the core of getting the house into the way that we wanted to live, maximising the space, putting in storage, which was the thing I was most excited about. Where, you know, given the chance to renovate, the thing I was most excited about was not having shoes and coats galore to be tripped over as soon as you walk in the door, which has been the situation in every other place that we've lived. You know, there was the opportunity to design spaces to add in a hallway cupboard for that purpose, and we've got these cupboards in the kitchen that stores all of the kids' arts and crafts and many, many board games that we have, and I think it's been useful in that way. Now I'll take you over to the spare room, which used to be the bathroom. So here we are. You might need to put your sunglasses on. This is the pink ceiling that I was talking about that gives off the glow. You genuinely do need sunglasses, especially with the pink throw. And this is a spare room. So we added the ensuite in at the 11th hour. We suddenly thought, oh, there's a girls' bathroom upstairs, and then our ensuite that guests can't really access, and that's not ideal if they have to keep going upstairs to share with the girls. Should we just put an ensuite in? So we said to the builders, do you think you could just put a really small ensuite, as small as is physically possible? And they did, because there's a weird little window that the bathroom obviously had this nice big sash window and this weird little window, but that lended itself really well to adding a little shower room in. And it's really nice that it can all be separate. So it's for guests when they come, and sometimes I actually Airbnb out this room because I just find it quite a fun thing, meeting people. And then you can see they've got like little tea and coffee and stuff, and it's called the Rainbow Room. And it's, again, this was my first room that I did with the Yes colours, and that's when I totally fell in love with them. And this is one of the rooms where I didn't paint 5,000 paint samples on the wall. I ordered the colours, I got the swatches, and I just picked, and I said, right, the woodwork's going to be blue, the window's going to be yellow, the ceiling's going to be pink, and I also got a bit of this electric mint green, which I've put in the cupboard. And then I just did it, and it was great. And everyone who stays here, they just say that it makes them feel so happy, and that's the aim. So it's like, it's small and cozy, and I feel like it wasn't that much before, but with all of the colours, I think it's made it a really cool space. So as I said, we added the bathroom at the absolute last minute, and the budget was like basically zero for it. And so we just put in the most basic things, like the most basic shower tray, the most basic shower door, the plainest white tiles, and then I started off with this idea of doing a monochrome thing. I was like, oh, that could be cool. So we started off, and they painted all the walls black, or like railings. In fact, it's like a really dark grey-ish black, and the tiles were all white. And then it went in, and I thought, I absolutely hate it. This was me trying. That was like an example, I guess, of like me trying a thing that just like wasn't me. I just thought, oh, I actually just can't live with this monochrome. I can't, even though it's for guests, I just cannot live with it. So I was thinking, what can I do? So repainted the whole thing white. And I thought, what can I do? You know, everything's been installed. We're on a budget. Like, how can I spruce up this space? How can I make this room, you know, match the main bedroom and also be a bit more like jazzy? And I ended up undertaking the most ridiculous project that I can't believe that I did and finished, but it worked out. It's really cool. I actually spray painted the shower fittings and the shower tiles. I've seen this really crazy image on Pinterest and it was kind of based on that. It's different colors, different design, but that's what gave me the inspiration. And so I spent about a week or 2 weeks. Nobody was living here, so I had all the windows open, like my mega spray mask. And I used waterproof spray paint and I sealed it all and spent hours and hours doing this meticulous masking tape. And I don't think people just think they're tiles. They always ask, oh, where did you get the colourful tiles from? But that was probably my most ambitious little DIY project. And then I obviously can't tile, so I ended up painting the same pattern on the wall just so that it went all the way around and like add a bit more interest. So my favourite space in the house, and you probably don't hear this very often, is actually a hallway. So I already mentioned about the storage being really important when we got to redesign the configuration of the house. But the other thing I was really excited about and really committed to was having the laundry upstairs. So I'm not sure what's coming in America, but in the UK, we always tend to have our washer and dryer downstairs, and that just doesn't make sense to me because that is not where the clothes are. And it's especially not where all my kids' clothes are that seem to be needing to be washed way too regularly. So my dream, which shows I'm getting old, was to have the washer dryer laundry area outside my kids' bedrooms, and that is right at the top of the house. And I've made it really colourful and joyous to make the sort of boring chore of doing laundry a little bit more bearable. And when we go up and see it, you can see for yourselves what I'm talking about. Okay, now I'd love to show you up to my daughter's floor. Okay, so this is undoubtedly my favourite part of the house. It's a hallway. I like to call this part of the house the Pastel Palace because this was the first area that I chose all of the colours and all of the decoration. And as I said, we did it from the top down. The light up here is unbelievable. So the ceiling used to end where this ceiling is. It used to go all of the way across. It used to be, the entrance to the bedroom used to be here, and all of this bathroom and all of my daughter's bedroom and all of these cupboards used to be one huge room. So it mirrored the space of the master bedroom below. But as I said, we were super keen to give our daughters their own bathroom so that we didn't have to share with them. And this was a natural place to put a bathroom in, and there was no window there. So we ended up taking the ceiling out and adding a skylight. But then we thought, well, why don't we just take all the ceilings out? Because we had actually applied for loft conversion just to, you know, while we were at it, maximize the space. And there's an interesting conservation feature called a butterfly roof. So if you see the roof slopes up that way, and then on the other side of the house, it slopes that. So I guess like butterfly wings. And that's a conservation feature that in the local conservation plan, they've really explicitly stated that they want to preserve those. So although there are many lofts in the area, those were done historically, and they want to conserve the feature. And to be fair, they do look really nice on the street, so I do understand that. But we thought, well, if we can't use the space, let's just take the ceilings out, and it gives this mega height. We added in all of these Velux windows, and it's super magical up here, I think. So I thought it would be a fun idea. I let my kids choose the colours for their bedrooms. It was chosen from, one's a blue and one's a pink, and they then chose the exact hues from what I'd like to call a curated selection. And then I thought it would be sweet to paint the door in the same colour as the I've painted all of the woodwork in their bedrooms the same colour, and then you know, it's like marking out, oh, this is so-and-so's room, this is so-and-so's room. And then the bathroom as well, you can see the door, the green goes in the same as the green panelling. And then I had these cupboards which are housing the laundry. And I thought, oh, we've used pink, we've used blue, we've used green, those are all my favourite colours, where do I go now? And at first I thought, oh, maybe yellow. And I painted a little swatch of yellow on the door. And then I thought, oh, that is a lot of yellow. I just think it would be a bit overwhelming and I think it'll be too much. And then one day I just thought, I'm gonna paint a rainbow. And this was actually the first like rainbow item in the house. So the other ones, this was the original inspiration. So everything else rainbow elsewhere has followed from this. So I thought I would just go for it, try it out, be brave. And if I don't like it, you know, what is the worst that can happen? It's just paint. And so I could just repaint it. So went for it, and it's my favourite part of the house and I absolutely love it, and I genuinely don't mind doing laundry. So this picture up here is something I actually added just a couple of weeks ago. As soon as this space had been painted and the window had been painted, everything was done, there was this massive blank canvas above the window that I felt was just calling out for something. So, you know, this is sort of a year and a half or since this top bit has been finished, maybe longer even. And I just saw in my head a massive carousel, but I never could figure out how to make that a reality, because how are you going to get a piece of art that is A, affordable, and B, the right size, and C, a carousel? And then I saw online, you know, I follow loads of fun interiors accounts, and I saw somebody using peel and stick wallpaper and framing it. And that was the light bulb moment. I thought, I'm so doing that. So I Googled carousel wallpaper and I found this really cool peel and stick, and I put it up and I spent a good day measuring up there, hanging off a really tall ladder, and I managed to install it myself, and I even managed to build a little frame around it, and that was my first time sort of sawing wood, and it made me feel like I was really, you know, really manly. This is my kids' bathroom. As I said, I was really keen for them to have their own space. When I was a teenager growing up, my best friend, I remember so clearly, her family did some work in their loft, and I think they had previously shared a bedroom, and they managed to squeeze in 2 small bedrooms and a little shower room, and it was 2 sisters sharing, and I remember just thinking this was the best thing, and they've got their own bathroom, and it was such a cool place to go over to her house and get ready. And in our house we all shared one bathroom, and I had a brother, and that just, you know, that whole thing didn't seem as cool. So I thought, oh, that would be so nice to give my girls, you know, I thought that was such a great thing when I was younger. So I thought, oh, it'd be really nice for them to have that kind of space growing up, and friends coming to get ready. And so we've managed to squeeze, it's quite a small space, but I was determined that we would squeeze in a shower and a bath so that they had both. And my spray painting escapades actually began here. So the shower, I ordered sort of brass shower fittings, and you know, sometimes the building gets held up, and it was in a box for ages. I didn't bother opening it when it arrived, and the day came, they said, okay, we're going to install the shower now, like, where is it? And I opened the box and I thought, oh, I don't really like the finish of that brass. You know, brass and gold, I think is quite tricky because you see something online, but it was quite this blacky brass, and it had I was not vibing with it. But I think it had been installed. It was actually, I saw it installed, and I just thought, oh my goodness, I really, really hate the shower. It's really ugly. I don't like it. So obviously, in the grand scheme of things, this is a really irrelevant problem to have. But I ended up thinking, what can I do with it? It's already in, it's already installed. We can't replace it now. That's going to be so much work. And I decided to spray paint the fittings. So that was my first foray into spray painting, and I'm totally obsessed. I think there's stuff, the chairs in the kitchen, those were I spray painted those. There's stuff I've probably missed out all around the house. There's a mirror in my bedroom that I'm working on, so many things. But this was where it all started. And they've also got a sort of greeny, funky, colourful grout in their shower, which makes just plain white tiles really simple, but really effective spot. So I'm a bit jealous of their shower, to be honest. Mint is my favourite colour, and it always has been. Ever since I was a child, if you ask my friends from when I was younger, blue and white stripes, another thing, they're always, you do not need another t-shirt with blue and white stripes. And I was always drawn to that colour. I think it just goes well with my colouring, so maybe I would choose it in my clothes, and it sparks joy. And when we were renovating, I just knew that I wanted to use loads of it. And the kitchen especially, it's all through the house, you'll find it everywhere. And finding the perfect mint is something that I have turned into somewhat of a scientific exploration. I actually ended up clearing out a lot of my samples because I think I had an entire cupboard worth of minty samples at one point, and it was getting a little bit unhealthy. Okay, so shall we have a little peek in one of my daughter's bedrooms? So this is the front bedroom, one of my daughter's bedrooms, and as I said before, it used to be this one almost cavernous room that almost felt too big. So it's a really nice size now, and as I said, we decided in the whole hallway and bathroom to take the ceilings out, but when they were renovating up here, they actually took out the ceilings on the whole floor. So this entire floor, it was just a shell, and there was just bricks everywhere and ceiling joists and exposed ceilings. And the first time I walked into this bedroom and the ceilings were out, I thought, wow, that looks unbelievable. And surely there's something that we can do to use this space, because it just feels sort of criminal to just plop the ceiling back again. So what we've ended up doing is adding a little, like we call it a little mezzanine nook, and popping a little ladder in. And so the kids' bedrooms are actually a mirror image of each other. So they have the identical size bedroom. I mean, I'm sure that they've measured it down to the exact centimetre, and you know, if anybody had 1 centimetre more than the other, huge arguments would ensue. But so they've both got a little mezzanine, and I just think it's so fun. I would have absolutely loved that when I was a kid. You know, I said I'm a big kid. I love sort of playful design and interiors, and all of their friends think it's super fun. And they go up there, and I'm sure that they just take sweets up there and hide and take tablets when I've said that they're not allowed to watch, and do all sorts of things. And who knows what's going to be going on when they're older. But it's a really cute little feature that they both love. When I'm decorating, one of my favourite styles is, I really like white walls, off-white walls, and then bringing colour in the woodwork. So I think actually the master bedroom is the only room with actual colour on the walls. So I decided at the beginning that all of the woodwork could be painted, and as I said, I gave my daughters the choice of the colour, and then we just painted all of the woodwork. And the windows originally started off, and I wasn't feeling super brave, and we just painted the architrave in the blue, and the window remained white, but then it just wasn't cutting it, and we had to go back. I said, no, we have to go for it, we have to do this properly. And so then the whole window's been painted in the blue, and it's really cute. And she's got this little hanging chair that we bought from our old apartment. This one's a total bookworm, and it's just nice to have a little spot to read in. I think that home it's a place to just be yourself, and to relax, and to be around things that you love. And I think that is the home that we've created. It's a really fun and welcoming and special place that we just really love living in.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Emily. Welcome to my home in London. I can't wait to show you around. Come on in.
watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Emily Penn. I'm an interior architect, and welcome to my Victorian terrace home in London. When we first viewed this house, it was really derelict. There were about 5 different sets of people living in this house, and there were only perhaps 4 rooms that people could sleep in. What we really loved about it was because it was super untouched and not a lot of work had been done to it. So it was a clean slate. It was probably in its worst state that it could be in at the time. And we saw a lot of potential. It had a lot of really good natural lighting, which you'll see in and around the different rooms in a little bit. And it felt like a really good place to be a starting project for both my partner and I. So we both loved it. Welcome to our living room. This is where we spend most of our evenings. My partner loves watching TV, so we wanted it to be very cozy and very snug. It's color drenched in this really beautiful moss green. In the evening, the light that emits from this pendant kind of really makes the space feel very movie theater-like, which I really love. And this room is where we snuggle with our dog, spend our evenings to decompress, watch TV, have our evening meals, and kind of just chill out. I am quite a big floral person. I think I have a secret dream of becoming a florist one day. So you'll see little floral themes and little accents throughout the house. This photo and art piece is by Casey Moore. I really love it. I am a huge collector of art pieces that have a lot of movement, and it has a lot of dynamic textures, and the composition is super interesting. I'm really drawn to it, and I feel like it really anchors the space nicely. So the sofa is from Love Your Home. I think sofas and anything your butt touches in a house should be where you invest your money, because we spend a lot of time sitting, and we wanted a sofa where we could truly lounge in. And I loved sleeping in this sofa when I'm tired or just having a nap. It is a 3-person sofa, and I wanted something light to contrast with the wall color, but it's very comfortable, and I would recommend for everybody to come and have a try. These sash windows were restored. They're double glazed, but I think it gives a very lovely frame to the outside, and really lovely frame from the outside to kind of have a little peek into our living space. We wanted velvet drapes, so to kind of help the space feel as big as possible. I wanted to also introduce these floor to ceiling length curtains that were in the same color, so you kind of read the room as one. But it's a different texture, so I think it lends and adds a little bit of interest to the window treatment as well. And privacy is also very important, especially because we're on the ground floor, so curtains, cafe curtains were really a small detail that we added to kind of help with privacy as well, and texture. There are lots of things in the house that are reclaimed or secondhand found through eBay. I'm a little bit of an eBay fiend, so I have had to limit myself to get one eBay item a month rather than spending too much and going on a shopping spree on eBay. But this lampshade is Monroe and Kerr, I think. And the base of the floor lamp is from eBay. I sourced it, and I don't know how old it is, but it looks really old, and the listing had implied that it's quite an old piece of furniture. Has really intricate details, and I love it. It kind of adds, again, a lot of texture and intricate details to this room. This chair base was reclaimed from eBay. So it was covered in quite an old fabric, and I went to go collect it from somebody found on eBay for £20. And when I got this chair upholstered, it felt really rewarding because it was one of the first things that came home, and it meant that I was close to the end, essentially. I wanted to have open shelving here, so to house our books, to house our memories, photographs, little trinkets that kind of display who we are. I love when people come into our house and look at our bookshelves and figure out if we would get along. I love that people can tell who you are by the books that you read. And there was a time that I really got into the price of gold. I was a little bit obsessed with gold and being able to invest in gold. So I told all my friends about how my next goal in life is to own a 12.5 kilo gold bar. So for my birthday one year, two friends of mine bought this really, really small gold chip that's worth £70. It's probably worth more now. And I framed it, and it's now on our shelf. So if there was ever an apocalypse, I would grab it and run, and it will buy me passage to wherever I want to go. So this fireplace was restored. When we moved in, it was boarded up actually with brick wallpaper. I'm not too sure why. It was interesting, but was really a lovely surprise. And when we uncovered it, we found the slate hearth, the surround, and actually this we maybe bought from eBay, if I remember correctly. So I think this and the hearth was what was retained, and we bought this surround from eBay to kind of frame it all together, painted it the same color as the wall. And it's an active fireplace, so in the winter it is so cozy, so lovely. I love a fire. I think all my friends and family, when they come visit us during Christmas period and this fire is on, it gives such a sense of warmth, and I think humans are so drawn to fire. It's a really, really lovely kind of central focal point for people to kind of congregate, and I love that. This rug was also an eBay find. I spent a lot of time kind of waiting for the right thing to come on the market. So I think the trick with eBay is really a lot of patience and kind of knowing where to look for things or how to navigate the platform. But the rug is from eBay. I love that it's a neutral color. It goes really lovely and well with our timber flooring, and our sofa just adds a subtle pattern to the details of the room. And this coffee table was a Facebook Market find. I wanted something that was very chunky. I personally have a dislike for skinny legs on tables. So you see all of our tables in our house has a very, very angular profile. And it's very simple, but very, very beautiful. So I'm a little bit of a collector, as you can tell. I spent a little bit of time doing pottery classes, so some of this is my own making. And I collect things again from eBay for my travels, just displaying my life in and around my house. I love candles. I love using scent to kind of anchor spaces when we have guests over. So you'll see candles kind of dotting in and around the house. Palo Santo to make sure the bad spirits and the bad juju are outside of the house rather than inside of the house. Most of our doors, actually probably all of our doors in our house, are reclaimed. This one again is from eBay. You'll probably be sick of me saying the word eBay by the end of this video. But reclaimed from eBay, we stripped it ourselves and restained and refinished it. Added these handles from Jim Lawrence, and it's a pocket system. So when we are in this room watching a movie and these doors are closed at the same time, it acts as a really good acoustic, isolated space away from the kitchen and the office. It's a old Victorian home. It was probably built in the late 1800s. So it feels really strange to be living in a piece of history that was built at a time when I wasn't even born or alive. So it felt a lot like we are custodians to this really special part of history. and it has very, very classic details like your Victorian cornices, ceiling roses, which we reinstated when we originally bought the house. Some of the original features were stripped away, so we spent a lot of time and energy trying to reinstate some of your very typical timber sash windows. You'll also see in the front that there is the London stock brick that we resurfaced. It was originally pebble dashed, and this house really suffered from damp and mold and ventilation issues. So it was really key for both my partner and I to prioritize those elements to kind of bring life back into the house and make sure that it's healthy again, and kind of facilitate us and our lifestyle as a family unit. Welcome to our kitchen. So this is where the rear and side extension were built. This is probably our largest space in the house and the one that we occupy and use the most. You'll see in the space that there are these timber baffles that we kind of wanted to introduce, and because we didn't want super big skylights because of cost, we wanted to limit the skylight panes and the sizes of them, but also add a bit of architectural interest to make sure the shadows weren't cast in a way that would illuminate the floor and the space to generate too much heat in the summertime. So I think these baffles are a really lovely detail. They're made out of oak, and we finished them in this color, and they kind of age with time, especially in the sun now. I'm a huge pottery fan, and this is a feature shelving that I wanted to be a focal point in our kitchen. I have lots of friends and family that come thinking that these are not the plates and bowls that they should use, but they're very much the plates and bowls that we use every day. I like that they're exposed and you can kind of help yourself and choose which bowl and which plate you want to use with your pasta, with your porridge, with your meal. And we painted it in this lovely red tone, which you'll see kind of repeating itself throughout the house. And red is a bit of a neutral for me. I don't think it's a color. It's kind of falling in the same category as a white or a beige. So I use it a lot in our house as a backdrop and a background. And it kind of displays really nicely. It helps kind of ground the room, and yeah, you're just really drawn to it when you're in the space, which I really love. And the floors is one of the feature element and design choices that we made. They're reclaimed quarry tiles. I really love turning really mundane and very overused materials kind of on its head. Quarry tiles are used externally and outdoors throughout the UK. I think it's a very standard building material, I would say. And using it to lay as a feature flooring in our kitchen was both a functional choice as well as an aesthetic. It's super hard wearing, it's very durable. In kitchens, you spill food, you spill oils, and it's a floor that kind of is very forgiving, and it adds a lot of interest, especially within this checkerboard pattern. These sconces on the side wall are actually from Greece, and they were shipped here, and I love that they kind of let this really soft glow that spreads over this wall. I didn't really want it to be super complicated or overfilled. I didn't want to have big art pieces on this wall because the floor was so busy. I wanted to make sure that there was a good balance between the textures in the room, so not too many elements were competing. I think these wall lights are exactly the right balance of a very beautiful form, but simple enough that it kind of recedes back to the backdrop of the space rather than it being the focal of the room. So this dining table is from eBay, and when it arrived, it was vanished and very yellow. We spent a couple of days sanding and stripping the varnish that it had on it, and stained it this nice color because we bought these church pew chairs, again from eBay, and I wanted to kind of look like they came together. Timber is very used as a material choice in this house, and it kind of ages with us. You'll see lots of little marks from the dinners we have, the parties we have with friends, and it marks nicely. I don't mind it so much. It kind of tells its own story through time. This window seat was a little bit of a happy accident when we went to planning to ask for permission. Originally, the design idea was to have a flat roof extension. So the council actually rejected that design iteration and had asked us to amend it to make sure the side extension was pitched to allow for neighbors' views and right to light be respected, which is absolutely fine. And when that kind of came through and we looked at the design of the architecture again, I wanted to step the side extension back. So from the outside, it was read as a different mass. And internally, this is kind of what was iterated in that form. This window seat was built for our dog, Harold. He sits on here to watch cats, and he's the security guard for our garden, and he loves the space. I sometimes sit here with him and have cuddles. I read my book, go on my phone, watch Instagram reels. It's really nice, and it frames the garden so nicely. I'm a big gardener now since we've had this house, so it's a really lovely portal to the outside during winter as well. I love a little bit of inside, outside, blending the boundaries between the two, and this does it really nicely. I am obsessed with fishy things, especially fish things that kind of iterate themselves in homes. I'm a diver, so the ocean is like a huge thing for me. So this jelly mold that's a fish was gifted to me actually by an antique dealer / friend, Jess. When we designed this kitchen, I wanted something really simplistic because again, the floor was the feature of the space, and we had our joiner bespoke build this kitchen. It's MDF veneered with oak, and we wanted it to be horizontal grained. You'll see that it's matched all the way through, so the veneer is actually a large piece that was cut door to door, and he wants to make sure everyone knows this every time I talk about the kitchen, but very meticulously matched to have a very seamless finish. And the top is a quartz top because it's relatively inexpensive. We wanted something very durable. It's a matte finish, not a glossy one, so it doesn't compete with too many of the finishes and textures in this house. And just a nice little upstand. This is kind of where we prep our food, toast our bread, make tea. And yeah, this is our main prepping space, and love displaying knives really openly, like we're chefs, but we're definitely not chefs. But easy access of knives is good. I'm big into open shelving, and I love displaying things in and around the house. So this is where we put all of our glasses. So again, super easy access. So when people come in, they're like, oh, where can I get my bowl, or where can I get my glass? And they can see it and just basically help themselves. So this is our sink, and we wanted a double sink because we eat a lot. We're both hungry eaters, and wanted to make sure there was enough space to kind of plop our lunch, breakfast, dinner plates before we needed to deal with it in the evening. And this is kind of our wet zone, if you will. This is our dishwasher. We have some spice drawers here next to the hob and oven. Again, a display of little bits. I don't particularly use them all the time, but they are pretty. And I like sometimes just collecting items and displaying them on the wall. This is another fish mold that was gifted to me by Jess on my birthday. Yeah, she knows I'm a bit of a fish fan. We have this lamp here in the corner. This is, again, a super dark space, especially in this room. It's the furthest away from the doors and the windows and skylight. So this is the first thing that lights this room, and it's not overly bright. When we come down here in the kitchen in the morning, it's the only thing that's on. It's on an auto timer essentially, so it turns on and off by itself. So there's always a little light for if you're thirsty in the middle of the night. It just guides you. This is a bespoke island, and when I designed it, I wanted it to look like a furniture item, so it felt floating almost and airless. And I think typical kitchen islands in the middle of spaces are all the way to the floor and super bulky. I wanted something super airy. I spend most of my days working here actually and perched. It's at a bar height rather than a counter height, which is quite nice because when we have parties and when we have people over, they use this as an additional space to kind of put their food and drinks on. But also it's powered. So I think one of the really cool things about this island is seeing that the legs are really thin and then figuring out it's actually powered and you go, how is it powered? But it's very well detailed and hidden through the leg of the island. And you'll see, if you observe really carefully, there's a seam where the cable's kind of fed through and there's a channel to directly feed the power onto the side. So this is where I work. I charge my phone, my computer throughout the day here. When we bought the house, we knew it required some huge uplift in terms of energy, money, and time. We knew that we wanted to do a rear and side extension, which is something that I think is quite typical of a terraced home in London. We wanted to enlarge the spaces to kind of maximize and optimize the flow of the house. There wasn't particularly one place or one room that we started with because all of it kind of needed to be done. But we wanted to kind of redo our master bedroom so that we could live here while we waited for construction to start, because there was a little bit of wait time between designing, going out to find a builder, and the builder being able to start. So our master bedroom was one of the places that we wanted to make sure it was like a little haven for us, while the rest of the house was still looking pretty bare and very sorry for itself. So the second phase of the build really was everything that you'll see in most of the rooms, the kitchen, the extension, the heavy lifting structural work kind of came in when the builder started. So this is our garden. I spoke to this earlier, but this is our rear extension brick. It's just a standard London brick stock against our side extension, which is in a charred timber. It's a nice black mass, which is separated from our rear extension. I wanted it to be read as separate forms rather than its own thing because of the angularity of the sloped and pitched roof. So this table is actually a zinc top with super mobile legs to make sure that it's very easy to move. Sometimes when we have more people and a bigger party, we will rotate the table to make sure that more people can sit on the bench and some on the chairs. I spent a really, really long time looking for chairs to go with the table, and these chairs were sourced, again, on eBay. They come from a French vineyard, and I'm sure the vineyard probably were getting tired of these red chairs, but I saw them and I said, they are coming home with me. So they are from, I think, the south of France, and they're labeled actually on the back of the chair of the vineyard. I love that there's a little story and history to them. I looked up the vineyard, so one day maybe I'll go to the vineyard to kind of close that circle and close that loop. But again, a lovely feature. Again, a red element that's introduced in our garden. These wall lights externally are actually the same form as the ones in our kitchen, but they're black. I wanted to not overcomplicate things, especially sometimes with materials. I think choosing too many will make the space look too busy. So a lot of my design scheme and design choices in the house are actually, if not the same, it would be similar. So these are just black and the same shape and same form as the one in the kitchen. I have never gardened ever before prior to moving into this house. I obviously lived in Malaysia, which isn't really a big gardening culture. We just have lots of plants and lots of trees. It's a rainforest climate, so we kind of just have greenery all around us. And being very prescriptive with gardening and with plants is not something that I grew up with. And then when I moved to Hong Kong, there was definitely no greenery there. And I always lived in smaller flats when I moved to London. So this is actually the first garden space that I have, When we designed the garden, I wasn't too sure that I was going to actually get my hands dirty and do it myself. So we had a really lovely garden designer, Susanna, who I often work with now, to help us with the planting plan. She helped me choose the plants, where to plant them. She asked me whether I would garden, and I told her, look, I have no idea. So I think she mixed in a variety of things to kind of see, and I start seeds myself now. I do a lot of plants that flower. I recently, last year, started growing flowers from seed, which is super, super rewarding. It's like growing a baby from scratch, so it feels very, very satisfying, very grounding, very therapeutic when I'm out here. I make sure every morning when I come downstairs after I wake up is the garden. I just come out here and walk, touch the grass, and I know it feels really silly to say, but it feels like I get back into reality and back into my body and really ground myself for the rest of the day. I think my tip for gardening is just start. I don't think there is necessarily a right or wrong way to do nature. And probably my garden designer, Susanna, would agree is it's trial and error. There's no right or wrong. It's plants, you, and soil and water. Whatever you gravitate towards going to the nursery, maybe you just pick a plant up, put it in the ground and see what happens. I think there's no perfection, so it kind of breaks away the mold of having it to be perfect, and you kind of learn on the go, you iterate, and you kind of develop your skills as you go along. And I'm by no means a good gardener, but I know I just really, really love it. A lot of what I do with work is always being considered and thoughtful in design choices. And I think when looking at homes, being able to consider every element is really important to me. This planter bench was actually integrated in the early design iterations, which also had an effect on the architecture and also subsequently had effect onto the interior space of the kitchen. This planter bench seat was built by a carpenter with marine grade ply and solid timber. So under the bench seating is actually apple crates that I sourced from eBay. They house all my gardening tools, some outdoor bits that can stay outside. And I just think it's a really, really nice functional item, but integrates really lovely and really well into our garden space. Our clay pavers were something that were chosen very deliberately for the front and the back garden. I wanted, whenever you come into the house, you kind of pick up this design element and this material at the front garden, and then you see it again in this space in the garden at the back. And how we laid it is different from front to back. In the back, it's actually stacked directionally, kind of pointing towards the rear of the space. The garden is designed in a way that there's another small seating area at the back. It's kind of secretive. It's a bit more intimate when it's super sunny here because we're in facing south. You can kind of go into the back corner and sit there and be in the shade and have a little intimate lunch, which I sometimes do with my partner. And these pavers, I wanted to kind of be integrated in the plants, so it kind of becomes a part of the landscape rather than these really big chunky steps that you often see perhaps in paving stones. And yeah, just keeping the material super, super simple, but being very intentional and thoughtful with it. So I came from a commercial interior architecture background, so I historically have always done large-scale buildings, campuses, office blocks, and worked with companies via consultancy basis or sometimes in-house for companies to kind of build out really, really large spaces to get people working in them. So when we took on this residential project, it was very different. It really challenged my design thinking. There was a lot more in the detail and in the tactility of all the smaller things in homes that I probably previously hadn't really thought of when I was designing offices or larger campuses. So I think it kind of activated different parts of my design brain. And now with my own company, having just recently founded and helping other clients kind of walk through their own home renovation journey, I find that it's really rewarding to kind of take them through the arc, because I think homes are such treasured, precious parts of everybody's lives. I feel really very honored and grateful to be able to be part of that journey. I don't know if I have a design style per se, because I think it kind of iterates and evolves with time. I draw a lot of my inspiration through hotels I stay in, or cafes that I go to, restaurants that I go to. I really, really enjoy observing and analyzing social spaces because I love observing people, and kind of what led me to do what I do now creatively. And I think when people come together and the space that they kind of inhabit and be a part of, it suddenly becomes this hub and facilitates and becomes the backdrop and background of people experiencing life. And I think that's really, really cool. So I sometimes draw inspiration from spaces I go. I love going to other people's homes and seeing how other people live, and drawing inspiration just from natural living, the day-to-day. So yeah, no style in particular, but just taking little bits of through my life, really. This is our powder room. It's the smallest space in the house, but very, very functional. So I wanted to decorate it in a little bit of a more daring and fun way. So the space is drenched in a yellow with a really, really lovely detailing of a red stripe on the rail of the panel. We actually recently redecorated the space, and a lot of the materials was kind of a little bit more whimsical, if you will. A lot of the elements here are actually sourced from eBay, so secondhand. I wanted to pack a lot into this room visually, so that you come in, you feel like you're powdering your nose and doing your makeup, and making sure that it's a space that guests feel like, well, actually there's isn't just a toilet, but there's a lot of interest in this room too. We have exposed copper taps in this space. I have a love-hate relationship with exposed copper taps. They're a lovely visual feature, but I think functionally they're quite a pain to kind of help constrict the flow of water. But I think it is such a industrial-looking element that kind of contrasts with the very feminine touch of the decoration of the space. I also sourced a lot of hardware and the mirror from eBay. They're quite dark, contrasting with this very light paint color throughout the room. I am again a collector of art pieces, especially vintage ones as well, and this piece of painting is actually by Walter Tyndale, and he has a collection of watercolor illustrations and paintings. This was actually found on Solus Art, and I framed it, put it on this really lovely red velvet ribbon to hang it over the back wall. Again, it's this red element that kind of pops in and out throughout the house. This door is actually a part of the original door sets that we had in the house when we moved in. This upper pane is actually in glass. The glass was broken, unfortunately, so we had to replace it with this fluted element. I don't think this is glass anymore, but again, it kind of lends itself to this privacy, but has a very easy access to the kitchen and the dining space. I find that when there is no window or access to the outside in an internal room, I like to introduce elements that kind of have an opening to help you feel like the room isn't as small as it actually is. So this element introduces light from our skylight, and this curtain is just to give you a little bit of privacy when you're in this space, but you can draw it open if you don't want privacy when you're in this room. The pendant here is by Beata, and I love interesting lighting fixtures. I find that there's so many cool things you can do with lights, and it draws your attention from a very ground plane or middle plane up to the ceiling. So it's a really nice way to kind of elongate your space and make your space as full as possible. So this light is actually in fabric with a lovely bow detail and a red ceiling rose, and I think it completes the space really nicely, adds to that feminine touch of a powder room. We have these raw terracotta tiles from Burton May, and I wanted it to be very, very raw and unfinished. I think kind of sitting next to the quarry tiles, you want something that isn't super contrasty or very vibrant. I wanted it to be very neutral in its color, but interesting enough to sit next to the quarry tiles. So the raw terracotta kind of grounds the space a little. You come in and you read the floor tiles with a little bit more interest, and then you kind of read the rest of the room as you go along. So it's a nice detail with a lovely little border around it. I have a thing about hidden plumbing or hidden mechanicals in buildings, especially in homes, because they can look really ugly and they're necessary, but not necessarily something that you want to read when you first walk into a room. So our extraction in the house is very, very well thought out. I have this concealed extractor valve in all of our bathrooms that are painted and plastered in essentially. So it's not this bulky item that stands out and you have to paint it retrospectively. But yeah, it's just round. It's attached to an inline unit and also extracts really well, very efficiently, to make sure there are no moisture in spaces where you don't want moisture in. My favorite thing about my home is how how we were able to really balance aesthetic and functionality. I think my partner is really treasured on making sure that things are practical and very functional in the way that it can't just look good, it also has to serve its purpose. And I agree, form following function and making sure that everything is very considered and thoughtful is something that I think has been a red thread throughout the house. There isn't necessarily a space that I would say is my favorite, because I think the most important thing for me was being able to introduce a very cohesive flow through the house, and also that it functions for us, and particularly when I think a home is built for its users, and that is probably the barometer of success for me. So I would say that's my favorite thing. I think the people and its inhabitants give soul to people's homes. It might be a little cliche to say, but I think a home is not a home without its inhabitants or without its people. So being able to be very personalized and being able to customize your space to who you are is something that I really love to witness through my clients and through other people through social media. Being able to see that, you know, people have children, their children are doing sketches and putting these sketches on the wall. I really love little personalized tidbits like that. Before we go upstairs, I just want to show you our front door, which is an element that we reintroduced for the house. It's something that makes me so happy to come home to. We painted it in a green, and stained glass is such a fun element in Victorian homes that I think adds a lot of interest, a lot of texture to an otherwise quite functional item like a door. So this is our master bedroom, and I really wanted this bed canopy recently. So it's actually a DIY element that we did over Christmas time, and my mom helped me sew it together. I think personally, I really don't love headboards. I think having to commit to a really expensive item like a headboard is too much for me. So I initially just had these really, really big oversized pillows that acted like our headboard. And retrospectively, we wanted to do this canopy to kind of help us feel like we're living in a castle. And this art piece is by Alexandra Coe. I actually commissioned her to do this piece for us, and it sits really lovely and really nicely above our bed. I really love the way that she draws and observes the human form. So really feel very honored to be able to have a piece of her artwork in our home, like our bedroom. These Murano wall sconces were sourced from Victorian, finally, not something from eBay. And they were something I just fell in love with when I first saw them, and I just had to get them. They were shipped from Italy to me when we first bought the house. And I really love that they look like mushrooms. I also have an affinity about mushrooms. So they are so cute. They emit this really soft glow when we turn them on in the evening. Just helps kind of anchor both sides of the bed. The fireplace in this room has original green tiles. So a lot of the colors that were introduced into this room are actually drawn out of the fireplace itself. I felt like we needed to be in keeping and very respectful of the original features. So checkered pattern you see a lot throughout the house, obviously in the kitchen on the floor, but this bedspread again is another really fun element to kind of add a little bit more interest to the space. But I wanted everything else in this room to feel very cozy and neutral. This is a space that we kind of come and decompress. When we go to sleep, I didn't want anything to be overstimulating in the colors or the textures. So everything we chose in here were very much things that soothe and calm me. So this is our original fireplace. So everything here actually was in this house. This surround is slate. It was originally in the living room that we moved up here. These tiles are so beautiful, as well as the floor hearth tiles. They are something that I don't think I'll be able to find now anywhere. And I wanted to be able to retain as much of it as possible, even though some of it is cracked and some of it is not in its best condition. But again, in the evenings of winter when I light a fire and we go to sleep with it, it feels like such a luxury and not something that I would have ever dreamed of a couple years ago or as a young girl. It feels like I'm sleeping in a princess bed with my canopy with a fire lit. I really, really enjoy it. It feels like a little treat for me. This is where I get ready every morning, where I dry my hair, where I do my makeup. Feels like a really lovely place to do it because I get a lot of natural light from the bay window, and the table itself is from eBay, as well as the chair. I love the detailing of this chair, even though it's really flimsy, and I'm just waiting for the day where it just breaks when I sit down on it. But again, just very, very thoughtful craftsmanship when this was built. A lot of curved elements in the dressing table and the chair itself. It feels like it was meant to be, and it was made as if it was a set, but it wasn't at all, and I just sourced them both separately. So a lot of the original features, like the cornices and the ceiling rose, we had to introduce. Plaster work in this house was very expensive, unfortunately, even though I didn't really want to spend an arm and a leg on cornices. But I feel like they are such a beautiful craft, and one that probably won't last for a very long time, unfortunately. And the ceiling rose I just fell in love with, again, because I love flowers and have a secret obsession about being a florist. So it's another floral element that's introduced into the room, kind of mirroring the same fireplace tiles on the floor as well as the hearth. On this floor, we wanted to keep the existing timber. Good and bad thing, depending on how you view it. But when we hired our floor specialist to come help us sand it. They said that they had never been sanded before, which means that they were basically virgin and fresh timber. They spent a lot more blood, sweat, and tears to do so because a thick layer of grime were built up on it. But it did mean that anything we did was going to be better than what it was before. They are pine timber floors, and then we stained them to make them a little bit darker, like an oak tint, and then sealed it. And I think they are a little bit creaky, not super perfect, but I really, really love them. I'm glad we were able to preserve and retain most of them. So this is our laundry space. We don't have our washing machine here, but it was a space that kind of naturally became our laundry space. I hate doing laundry in spaces that are functional, like the kitchen or the bathroom, and being able to dedicate a space just for laundry feels like a luxury, but I'm very, very glad that we do. And the space also is where I kind of sit and chill and decompress sometimes. It has a really cute little chair. I collected all of this art and I displayed them here with some plates, with some ceramics. Theoretically, this is the third bedroom that we have in the house, but we now use it as a laundry space, obviously. I didn't really want to hang a door to make it feel even more restrictive. So this is a little door curtain because it's also kind of where we change in the morning. So it acts a little bit like a dressing space. And I really like this detail. So this wall light here is from Etsy. Sometimes I change it up from eBay to Etsy to find secondhand goods. But again, super, super cute. I love chunky things. I think it's a really nice detail. Obviously turned with this really beautiful chunky spine that it has. And yeah, sometimes I turn the light on when I'm reading in here, or when the space is a bit dark in the evening. I wanted this room to be in a yellow because I wanted it to be a little bit of a happy and uplifting space, because I knew it was going to be quite a functional room to do either work as an office or laundry or anything related to quite a mundane household chore and task. I wanted to paint it in this India yellow, which really grounds the space, makes you feel a little bit more uplifted and happy with this wallpaper border. I think it draws in the purple in the timber and the woodworks really nicely. So it feels quite whimsical, kind of like the powder room on the ground floor too. I am from Malaysia originally, so I grew up actually living with my grandparents, and they used to make locks. So I grew up next to a factory. My house was incredibly functional, and my connotation to home when I was younger was always being able to kind of live off our home, and our home needed to be a way to kind of facilitate our living in somehow. And I moved to Hong Kong, which also meant that my space kind of shrunk, because in Hong Kong apartments are really small, real estate is very sought after. So my meaning or the definition of home kind of shifted through my youth to be very functional and very boxy. And ever since I studied interior architecture and now living in the UK, it has become a lot more aesthetic driven. So now I feel like a lot of what I do is kind of balance my identity between the uber functional of, you know, making sure that things just serve a purpose without having to think about what it looks like, and now living in a society and probably in a time where everything is so visually driven. So I think balancing those two is probably what home means to me now, and trying to understand how a home can both be functional but beautiful at the same time. Homeworthy, it was so lovely showing you around my house in London, but you guys have to go now, so I'll see you later.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.